Okay, Badri, it's 6.
Yeah, you can start.
Am I online now?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Badri. Greetings, good evening, and a very warm welcome to everybody today. We are now at the concluding day of the Tamil Heritage Trust's Indology Festival 2022. Many of you have been with us over the last 4 days attending these talks. Some of you are familiar with Tamil Heritage Trust and have been with us over a few years. And some of you, maybe today is your first day here at the Tamil Heritage Trust Indology Festival. So for your benefit, I would like to start by a very small introduction of THT and the work it does. Right. So Tamil Heritage Trust was established in the year 2010 with a primary objective of working around heritage and heritage awareness. And the shape and form this work has taken has largely been in the mold of helping the general public understand India's heritage and history, and then from understanding, moving on to appreciation of Indian heritage, but not just stopping with appreciation, also helping create a platform where active dissemination of knowledge of India's heritage can happen, culminating finally in a celebration of all that is India's heritage. And today's festival, the THT Indology Festival 2022, is one such manifestation of the celebration of India's heritage that we do at Tamil Heritage Trust. So over the last 12 years or so, our work has evolved, but it really began with what we call a monthly heritage talk, where on the first Saturday of every month, we invite a speaker of note to come and share his or her work about a particular topic of interest. And we've had these talks going for the last 12 years now, and all of these talks have been uploaded onto Tamil Heritage Trust YouTube channel. We have a list of over 100 talks at last count, and I would invite all of you to perhaps spend some time browsing through Tamil Heritage Trust YouTube channel and even subscribe to it so you can be intimated whenever we add a new talk to our repository. Also, what we do is something called a Pechu Kacheri, which is a day-long seminar format where we pick a particular theme of interest. For example, in the past, we have picked the Pandyas or the Pallavas or Mamallapuram, or one year we even covered the contributions of Dr. R. Nagaswamy. So these are full day length format seminars, which we do once a year, and we call this Pechu Kacheri. So it's an in-depth dive into one particular topic and inviting several speakers to talk about that one theme. All of these talks, like I said, are uploaded post-event onto Tamil Heritage Trust's YouTube channel, and you can find them all organized very logically and conceptually on the THT's YouTube channel. So please do visit our YouTube website and subscribe. The other thing which we really do are also what are best referred to as workshops, but also master classes as some people understand them, where we have one THT volunteer really anchor a workshop. And these workshops are either on how to see a temple, HowSat as we call them. And then we have something called HowSam, how to see a museum, where we take a group of interested enthusiasts to a particular gallery in the Chennai Museum, Chennai Government Museum, and we have a walkthrough of that particular gallery. And then there are also active hands-on workshops on Pallava Grantha and how to read and decipher the script, anchored by some of our volunteers. We do these workshops once in a while, maybe once in a couple of months, and we send out intimations inviting registrations for these workshops whenever we host them. The flagship event really of THT over the last few years has really been this annual site seminar, where we take a fairly large group of maybe 40 to 50 heritage enthusiasts drawn not just from Tamil Nadu, but from across the state to a site of historical interest. And over the last years, we've had the good fortune of visiting sites in Odisha, in Madhya Pradesh, in Gujarat, but also in Tamil Nadu as well. So these site seminars are much looked forward to. And over the last few years, I think we've built a body of work which has proved deeply valuable for the interested heritage enthusiasts. Something which we started doing in the last couple of years is the institution of Tamil Heritage Trust Professor S. Swaminathan Heritage Award. Professor Swaminathan, of course, as many of you will know, has been the founding force behind the starting of the Tamil Heritage Trust. So this award is in his name, and there have been 2 editions of the award so far, and this year we eagerly look forward to the 3rd edition as well. What this award really does is recognize the contribution and the work of a young heritage researcher who's actively helped spread and create awareness of Indian heritage. Something we started in the middle of the pandemic is Alamar Avai, or a collective of teachers who are interested in learning a little bit more about history and also how to actively transact this in their own classrooms in their own way. So Alamar Avai, or Teachers for Heritage, is something which we started last year, and it's taken off really well, and it also has a practicum component where each of these teachers actually go back, visit a temple, come back and share their experience with the rest of the group. A forthcoming event in the Tamil Heritage Trust calendar for 2022 is the V. Venkaya Epigraphy Award. Rai Bahadur Venkaya was the first Indian chief epigraphist of the ASI, and along with his great-granddaughter Sunita Madhavan, Tamil Heritage Trust is quite proud to co-host this award this year. The award aims to recognize exceptional individuals who have contributed in the field of epigraphy, right? And as the slide says, either discovery or deciphering of unrecorded inscriptions, bringing whole new interpretations to inscriptions which are known. And we are actively inviting nominations for this award. And the last date for submitting nominations is 19 June. So I encourage all of you who are watching, if you know an epigraphist of note and who has contributed towards this field, please do encourage them to send us a nomination. There are further details available on our website, www.tamilheritage.in. Which brings me then to this event which we are now a part of, the Tamil Heritage Trust Indology Festival. So the inaugural edition of this festival was held in late 2020, and it took off in a really big way where we invited speakers, not just from across India, but also from across the world. We had a few academics from abroad join us as well and talk about areas of their pet interest. And I think this kind of set the path for a continuation of this festival format. And we are now, of course, hosting the Indology Festival 2022. The theme for this year has been Temple Builders of Medieval India. And over the last 4 days, as many of you would have realized, we have crisscrossed the length and breadth of the country from the north to the south and from the east to the west. But we've also traveled in time across nearly 5 centuries worth of history. And we've had several excellent speakers speak on topics of deep interest to them. So we've had some speakers speak on topics which are fairly well known, like the Cholas, for example, or the Hoysalas. But thanks to this festival and the speakers and the expertise they bring, we've also heard of perhaps lesser known dynasties like the Shilaharas or the Palas or the Senas of the East India. Today's talk, at the end of 4 days, we are on day 5 right now. We have 2 excellent speakers lined up. We will start with Dr. Shivanagi Reddy talk about the Kakatiyas, followed by Dr. Paromita Das, who will speak later, closer to 7:30 on the Ahom dynasty. Like my fellow volunteer Kishore said, we've reached the end of some kind of a long format tournament, and we're very happy to be here, and we have 2 excellent talks lined up, and this brings the proceedings really of the last 5 days to an end. But without further ado, let me spend some time introducing you all to the speaker of the day, Dr. Shivanagi Reddy. So Dr. E. Shivanagi Reddy is a Sthapati and an archaeologist, and has had his formal training in traditional sculpture and architecture from the SV Institute for Traditional Sculpture and Architecture at Tirupati. Dr. Reddy also has a master's degree in ancient Indian history, culture, and archaeology from the Osmania University. He also was awarded a PhD in history by the Hyderabad Central University. Dr. Reddy has served the Endowments and Archaeology Department for over 35 years now. And really his area of expertise has been in the successful transplanting of more than 100 temples from the Sri Shailam submersible area and in turn, conservation of a number of these Kakatiya temples in Warangal and Karimnagar district. So we can't really think of a better speaker to speak on this topic on the art and architecture of the Kakatiyas. Dr. Reddy has written many books on temple architecture, including an encyclopedia of Indian temple architecture and the evolution of building technology in the early and medieval Andhra Desha, right? And the Shilpins in early and medieval Andhra Desha, temples of the Telugu people, and temple construction during the Vijayanagara period. Dr. Nagi Reddy also has a special interest in Buddhism and has authored several books on Buddhism, including Buddhist archaeology in the Andhra Pradesh circuit and Telangana as well, Buddhist heritage of Andhra Pradesh, and the Buddhist inscriptions of the Andhra Desha. Dr. Reddy has also actively participated in excavations at many Buddhist sites in Andhra Pradesh. Currently, he holds the title of the CEO of the Cultural Center of Vijayawada and Amravati, established by the Mahalakshmi Group at Vijayawada. Dr. Sivanagi Reddy is a recipient of the prestigious Kalaratna Award from the government of Andhra Pradesh. So with much happiness, I now welcome Dr. Nagi Reddy to address you all.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Good evening to all the respected people associated with Tamil Heritage Trust, and gave me a wonderful opportunity to take part in this wonderful program of a 5-day THT Fest on builders of Indian temples. It is a very wonderful topic. Why? Because in every part of the country, whenever you roam around, whether it is in the east, west, north, or central India, you find a good number of temples built in different styles, and you would like really to know. And we are very much familiar to the temples and their styles, forms of our own region. But if we want to know, we have to tour, and during the tour, we should know at least the dynasty, the style, the important features of the temples, etc. It is very difficult for all of us to move or to wander through the India. This is the best opportunity to learn many more things through this festival. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizers in the sense that our Sivasankar Babuji, Sheshadriji, and the senior founder member and all others. Yes, let me thank once again to the organizers and participants of this particular event. Now, I would also like to thank Ashwin Prabhuji, who has taken a few minutes to give introduction on THT, its programs, and also on me and my what we call a little bit of contribution to Indian temple architecture. Thank you, sir. Now, I will begin my topic on what we call Kakatiyas as temple builders. We all know that Kakatiyas is one of the major dynasties that ruled in South India from 10th century to first quarter of the 14th century. Now, the age is also called as the age of the Satavahanas in the Telugu states because it left an indelible mark not only on the part of art and letters, but also on art and architecture, and for the all-round development, which for some reasons, the epoch is also called as the golden epoch of the Telugu people. Yes, sir. Yes. Now, as in the Kakatiyas, as I would like to say that these are the contemporaries of the Hoysalas of Dwarasamudra, then and subordinates of Chalukyas of Kalyana, and contemporaries of the Pandyas of Madhura and the Eastern Ganga dynasty, etc. So this is what we call the contemporary situation, and they began their career as military generals and subordinate rulers of the Rashtrakutas. As we know that the Bayarm tank inscription of Mailamba, the sister of the mighty Kakatiya Emperor Ganapati Deva, provides us the origin of the Kakatiya dynasty with a whole long list of the rulers right from 9th century onwards when they started their career as subordinates to Rashtrakutas. Next, we will also have ample information on their origin from a literary work called Prataparudra Yaso Bhushana. And these were called as Kakatiya Puravaradhishwaras, as if they hail from a particular place called Kakatiya Pura, and they were ardent worshippers of goddess Kakati. It has been mentioned in many more contemporary literature as well as inscriptions. So it is very clear that they belong to the Rashtrakuta family. They belong to again the Andhra region. Andhra means we shall not misunderstand between the difference between Andhra and Telangana, because until recent past it is known as the Andhra only, but now for the past 7 years it is bifurcated into 2 states. So whatever it may be, the Telugu speaking region. We also have got one more inscription called Mangallu plates, that is copper-plate inscription of Dhanarnava of the Eastern Chalukyan king, that it mentions that they belong to the Rashtrakuta. One Rashtrakuta, Gundyana, was there. He was responsible for helping the Rashtrakuta kingdom to in successfully gaining over the Eastern Chalukyas. Henceforth, the Mangallu plate says that Gundyana was given some grants, etc. And his son Area was also called as Area Rashtrakuta. He really enjoyed the region that was given to his father, that is the Koravi region, present day Mahbubabad district, former Khammam district. So that was their origin. To be very clear that they began their career as the subordinates to the Rashtrakuta family. We all know that who Rashtrakutas are, where did they rule from, and there are many evidences that to attest the fact. Next is that, yes, another thing that we have to come to know is that the Chalukyas of Kalyana had their sway over the entire Telangana and certain parts of Andhra and Rayalaseema region. Right from the 10th century, 11th century onwards, these Kakatiyas, who were known as belong to Rashtrakuta family, served as military generals as well as important chiefs to the Chalukyas of Kalyana. To give a few examples, that Beta the first served Someswara the first of the Chalukyas of Kalyana, then Prola the first served Vikramaditya the sixth, Beta the second served Someswara the third, and Prola the second, who was actually who paved way for an independent kingdom of the Kakatiya, served as subordinate to Jagadeka Malla the second. Last but not the least, is very important to know that the Kakatiyas, who were subordinates, assumed independence and started ruling after what you call the rule of Tailapa the third, who was actually under a great pressure from Kalathuris of Karnataka. Next one is that, yes, now we can call Kakatiyas as independent rulers right from Rudradeva. He is also known as Prataparudra the first, who started ruling from 1158 AD up to 1195 AD. And we have a very good inscription, 1000-pillar inscription, dated 1163, in which he has given all the names of the chiefs that were ruling over Telangana, that he has defeated and annexed his kingdom from Hanumakonda. That really was the beginning of what we call extending the region of the Kakatiya kingdom to other parts of the Telangana only in the beginning. And the Kakatiya Rudradeva has also invaded. He went up to coastal Andhra because during that period of time, the coastal Andhra was under the rule of the Chalukya Cholas, with special reference to the Velanati Cholas who were ruling from a place called Sandolu near Bapatla. So he has also annexed that particular part also, Andhra also. Then Jalhana's Sukti Muktavali and Hemadri's Vratakanda refer that he came into conflict with Yadavas of Devagiri and he defeated them. Rudradeva, in order to meet the increasing needs of the civil and military administration, he of his own independent kingdom, he laid foundation to the new capital city at Warangal. It was only a beginning, and it was followed by Mahadeva, his successor, and completed by Ganapati Deva in 12th century, 13th century AD. Unfortunately, Rudradeva, who called a kingdom for themselves of the Kakatiyas, died in a war with the Yadavas in 1195 AD. Yes, he is known as a great temple builder because the 1,000-pillar temple was built by him. It is, I will show you the architectural features and artistic grandeur of the 1,000-pillar temple built by Rudradeva, where he really made a wonderful beginning for construction of temples of grandeur by the Kakatiyas, known in the style of the Kakatiyas, exclusive, and it distinguishes from their earlier rulers of Kalyani Chalukyas. Next, yes, this is actually the temple of 1,000-pillar temple, known as simply 1,000-pillar temple, but it is dedicated to Rudra Vasudeva Aditya for all Seva, Vishnu, and Surya. It was mentioned in that inscription. And the temple consists of Garbhagraha, Ardhamandapa for each and every one. For all the three, it is a Trikuta temple and connected to a common Rangamandapa. And it also has a Nandi Mandapa and a Kalyana Mandapa to its south. The original entrance of the temple was through the Kalyana Mandapa. And what we know, the Kalyana Mandapa is again called as Ayrakal Mandapam, that is 1,000-pillared Mandapa. And the name of the temple is also called 1,000-pillar temple. And Mahadeva, he was succeeded, Ganapati Deva was, Rudradeva was succeeded by Mahadeva, who started ruling from 1195 and ruled only for 4 or 5 years only. What happened was, he himself, Mahadeva, and his son Ganapati Deva, the rule was not that much easy. They resisted the Yadava invasions from time to time on a continuous place. But Mahadeva lost his life in the war with the Yadavas, and Ganapati Deva, his son and successor, was taken as a prisoner by Jaitugi of the Yadava kingdom of Devagiri. Then, at the same time, there prevailed a disorder in the entire kingdom of the Kakatiyas. For the time being, there was not even a king in on the throne of the Kakatiyas. But what happened? The king died, the king's son and successor, and the crown prince was taken as prisoner. And at that point of time, the military general of Mahadeva, or the Kakatiya kingdom, by name Rechella Rudri Reddy, took to the rescue, and he saved the dynasty from what we call being occupied by other enemies. So he is Rechella Rudra, the commander-in-chief of Mahadeva, saved the kingdom from the Yadavas, and he is known as, he was rewarded with a title called Kakatiya Rajya Dhaureya, and protector of the Kakatiya kingdom also. Yes, next, after the Mahadeva and Ganapati Deva released from the prison with the intervention of Rechella Rudra, the commander-in-chief, then he started ruling. He actually ascended the throne in 1199 and ruled for up to 1261. That is nearly 62 years. A very long tenure of rule. There are very few. He is one among them. Ganapati Deva rule is really recorded with many number of expeditions, annexations, and what we call carving a very beautiful empire. Until that point of time, Kakatiyas were known, or Kakatiya kingdom, but from Ganapati Deva's time, it became an empire, and he is known as Kakatiya Ganapati Deva Chakravarti, like that. And he invaded the coastal Andhra, and he actually annexed the entire area, which was lost during the Prolas the second time. Then he also invaded that Nellore region, wherein the Telugu Chola of Nellore were against to the Kakatiyas. Then he invaded the Kalinga region. He took an expedition, went up to Kataka. Then he annexed the coastal tracts of the Andhra into the Kakatiya kingdom. Last but not the least, he moved even down south up to Kanchi and beyond Kanchi. He is one of the military generals, Mr. Saunda Senapati, was considered or given a title called Kanchi Kavata Chorakara. That is, he smashed the fortification of Kanchi. So it is mentioned in one of the inscriptions. So what I ultimately I want to tell you is that Kakatiya Ganpati Deva, he has extended the small region of the Kakatiya dynasty and into an empire, and he annexed on all the four directions. And to commemorate it, he again built a temple and decorated with Toranas on four sides, known as Kakatiya Kirti Toranas, which we will see in the subsequent slides. Kakatiya Ganapati Deva actually completed the entire new capital city, whose foundation was laid by Rudradeva in as early as 1163 AD. Now, yes, this is, can you see the plan of, spelling mistake, plan of the Port Warangal. It is in three concentric circles, thanks to George Mitchell, who has documented this and given this particular shape, and it is now, it was exaggerated in many of the contemporary writings that it has 7 prakaras, but at the moment we can see 3 prakaras, concentric circle, in which at the center the Ekasila Nagara or Warangal stand as a testimonial to the glorious past and glorious capital city of the Kakatiyas, wherein we have many number of their these things, the constructions. This is actually the fort. The fort runs nearly to 20 kilometers if we go around. It is a very big one. And the earthen fort again goes for 60 kilometers or 100 kilometers, abutting to this one at the end. So what happens is that Ganapati Deva has given a full-fledged reference to the Kakatiya kingdom for the first time. Next, Kakatiya Ganapati Deva has encouraged arts and letters. Then he built a good number of temples. And during his tenure, what happened was the trade and commerce, agriculture, he provided irrigation facilities, whatnot. Hence, it was known as the what to call the golden epoch of the period. Next one is that after the Ganapati Deva, his daughter, he has no male children. So his daughter, he has 3 daughters, and one of his daughters by name Rudramadevi assumed the name of Rudradeva Maharaja as a male, and she assumed the charge soon after in 1262. And most of the researchers reveal that she was trained during the tenure of Ganapati Deva, and when he was alive, she was again coronated as what we call the regent, and afterwards from 1262 onwards, she started ruling independently and continued up to 1289. And Rudram Devi, again, it was not easy for her to rule smoothly. There were enemies taking advantage that she being a woman, yes, why should we allow a lady to be allowed to rule? No. Then many number of enemies joined together and started invading the Kakatiya kingdom from north, northwest, west, south, etc. So during the Rudram Devi period, the critical invasion was by the Yadavas, who started what to call giving trouble to Rudramadevi. Then she could withstand to that. After that, one of his military generals or an independent ruler in Rayalaseema by name Kayastha Ambadeva. He was so faithful to the Kakatiyas, but taking advantage. No, why should we allow a lady to rule? He also revolted against Rudramadevi. And what happened in one of the rebellion? She, in as early as 1272, he what to call he wanted to be independent kingdom, and there was a fight between Rudramadevi and Ambadeva at Tripurantakam. She suppressed successfully that rebellion. But this man, being an enemy to his own master, he invaded once again in 1289, in which Rudrandevi lost her life in the battlefield along with her bodyguard Mallikarjuna Nayaka, according to an inscription found at Sandupatla dated 1289 AD. So that was a very, very, very sad demise of such a greatest woman ruler of the entire, not entire South India, but as far as the Telugu land is concerned. She is first and foremost among the Telugus who have ruled such a vast extent. So Rudramadevi again Rudramadevi was married to Chalukya Virabhadra, and then during her tenure also, each and every field, there was a development in almost all aspects. And Marco Polo, who visited her court during her tenure, gave a wonderful testimonial that the rule was so prosperous, the trade was in flourishing state, people are very happy, and this is a very well flourishing state. Next to Rudramadevi. Again, Rudramadevi also had no male children. So she had a grandson by name Prataparudra Deva. He was again trained under her able leadership in almost all the competencies that a crown prince should have. Then, after the immediate death of Rudramadevi, he assumed as the king or the what we call emperor of Kakatiya kingdom as early as 1289 AD and ruled up to 1233 AD. And his entire tenure for the very brief period also, he was not on peace, but war took lead. Then he first wanted to suppress the enemies who were revolting and revolted during the tenure of Rudram Devi. More so, he wanted again to teach a lesson to Ambadeva, who killed Rudram Devi, his grandmother, on the battlefield. He invaded Ambadeva on his area of rule, and he killed him in the battlefield. Then he again, he again brought almost all the regions which were under threat. After Rambadeva, he again went to Nellore because Nelluru Telugu Cholas were supported by the Pandyas and there was some disturbance. And he went there and there was an internecine war in between the Telugu Chola family. He restored peace among the Telugu Cholas. And then again, there was again a war along with the Yadavas that was continuously right from Rudradeva period onwards, and he suppressed that Yadava rule also. Finally, what happened when he was actually to breathe smoothly, there was again a bell of danger from Delhi. So, first, what we call is the Khiljis, followed by the Tughlaqs. They have attacked more than 7 times on Warangal, which was known as a wonderful and peaceful dynasty and kingdom. And what happened was the forces of the Delhi Sultanate attacked on the fort of Warangal many a time, smashed it, and the in 1233, the Tughlaqs have conquered Warangal, renamed it as Sultanpura, and Pratapruddha Deva was taken as a prisoner to Delhi. En route to Delhi, Prataparudra, it was according to the sources, died, and the rule of the Kakatiyas came to an end. Now you can see, we will go that during that tenure, I think the mighty fortifications were built, and again they have also extended their support for irrigation and reclamation of land, etc. They brought a large number of extent to agriculture through irrigation facilities, and henceforth the empire was in a peaceful state. They built more than 10,000 temples throughout their domain. Mostly 90% of the temples were located in Telangana region, and 10% are in coastal Andhra and also in Rayalaseema by the royalty as well as the chiefs also. So we can also see varieties of things. As I mentioned earlier, Kakatiya Ganapati Deva, after conquering the 4 directions, he wanted to commemorate his victory, and he built these Toranas to commemorate his victory. Then they also not only built stone temples exclusively, then stone and brick with brick vimanas. Then they have also continued experimentation on construction of temples through hewing into the live rock. There are some of the Kakatiya rock cut caves at Hanamakonda, and there is a place called Gandhari Kota, in which during the 13th century, probably during the rule of the Kakatiya Ganapati Deva, there are beautiful temples with Kakatiya symbols, and the entire fortification was hewn into this thing. And you can see many number of temples came up with their typical Kakatiya style, as we see at Tripurantakam. It is mostly border of Telangana and Andhra in present day Prakasam district, Tripurantakeswara temple. But you can see the same Kakatiya elements because it was built during the time of Kakatiya Rudramadevi and Ganapati Deva, but continued to receive patronage during Rudramadevi. Rudramadevi also visited this temple. Here now, yes, I have finished all those things. Not then. The rule of the Kakatiyas was known for their wonderful polity and administration. Now, type of monarchy was the nature of the polity of the Kakatiyas, which was totally decentralized. There were more than 13 subordinate chiefs, and they ruled independently with acknowledging the suzerainty of the Kakatiyas. Then they have what you call operators of the empire have ministers, pradhanis, mahapradhanis, known as pregadas and amartyas, recruited from different social groups. And the entire kingdom or the empire was divided into Rajya, Mandala, Nadu, Sthala, Sima, and Bhumi. Not going into details of giving some more references. Provincial administration was by the chiefs. We all know that, as I mentioned earlier, there were 13 chiefdoms under the Kakatiyas. Village was administered very well, attested, time-tested administration by the Ayagas, Talari, Karanam, Reddy, who were vested with different powers to collect tax, again to deliver administration. Then village councils were also there, which were in existence. They helped in running the administration so smooth. And there were again Nagaras, Nakaras, Mahajana, Agarhara, Sthala, and Samaya. These are some of the what we call councils that assisted the regular administration. Military administration has its own system. The Nayankara system was introduced for the first time in this part of the country by the Kakatiyas, in which military officers of the military were given land, and it perpetuated that military administration. Cultivation of land. Agrarian structure was very well established, and the land, two types of lands, wet and dry, reclamation was brought into then by cutting what we call by clearing the forest and providing these things. Varieties of crops were raised. Many number of inscriptions give at least good number of crops that they were raised. And trade and commerce was in state of flourish. We all know that both inland and overseas trade were encouraged by the Kakatiyas. We have varieties of trade communities, native and foreign, that is Nana Desis, Ubhaya Nana Desis, Tamila Nakaram, Aravanakaram, and Telugu Nakaram. These are some of the mercantile communities, and in spite of that, we also have got certain communities known as Balija, Seti Balija, etc. also, who were actually into the trading activity. Yes, during the Kakatiya Ganapati Seva's time, there was what you call many of the traders who were going on sea or engaged in seaborne trade were facing lot of difficulties and meeting accidents on the sea, and their what you call trade was actually disturbed by sea pirates, etc. At that point of time, Ganapati Deva in 1245 AD has issued an inscription in which the loss was again compensated by the government and it is known as Motupalli Abhaya Sasana. Trade links were very much well established with connected with trade routes throughout, and goods number very what we call many number of trade goods were transacted inland and foreign also. And social structure, as we know, it is actually continued the existing social structure of the fourfold varnashrama dharma. And what happens was that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaisya, and Sudra. Several subsects among each group were also noticed, as mentioned in the contemporary literature and again in inscriptions. Emergence of Sudras as rulers. This is very important. Up to that point of time, Kshatriyas were the rulers, but from the Kakatiyas, what happened was they themselves belonged to the Sudra community, and it clearly reveals upward social mobility during the Kakatiya tenure. Yes, as far as the religion is concerned, we all know that Kakatiyas were actually basically Jains in the beginning, and slowly they shifted their patronage towards Saivism. Within the Saivism, you have many number of subsects called Kalamukha, Pasupata, and Aradhya. Many number of such Saiva sects were there. Even Veerasaivism also has its dent into the Kakatiya area. Then Vaishnavism was equally given importance. Temples, for example, the 1,000-pillar temple clearly reveals the harmonious attitude of the Kakatiyas that Rudradeva has built a temple for Rudra Vasudeva Aditya. This is very important. Similarly, there were Buddhism was also given encouragement, but not as it was given to the other religions, no? Like Saivism, etc. We have ample evidence that Pandita Rajya Charitra and the Bekalu inscription of Mallireddy, it says that Chaturvidha Samaya, Jainism, Vaishnavism, and Saivism, Buddhism, these were given equal importance, and there was cultural harmony. So many good number of temples for both these were built. For Chennakesava, many number of Chennakesava, Panchalaraya, these are actually Vaishnavite temples, and among the Saivais, we have got n number of temples dedicated straight away to Shiva in the form of Linga, but also to Veerabhadra, then Bhairava, and varieties of names. Yes, here the literature, it received great fillip from almost all the kings. And we all know that Tikkana from Nellore has visited, he is known as one of the Kavitraya. He visited Ganapati Deva's court, and there were many people who have contributed for both two types of language, two languages in Sanskrit and Telugu. We know that Vidyanatha has contributed Prataparudra Yasobhushana in Sanskrit. Then we also have again a Sanskrit treatise called Jayapa's Nrttaratnavali, wonderful treatise on forms of dance of that particular time. Jayapa was the commander-in-chief of the elephant in Kakatiya. Then there were kings. Tikkan Somayaji wrote Nirvasinottar Ramayana. Tarvata Bhaskar Mantri has wrote Bhaskar Ramayana. Gona Buddha Reddy, his subordinate, wrote Ranganath Ramayana. Marana has wrote Markandeya Purana. Nanyachoda has wrote Kumar Sambhava. Badena wrote what we call Sumati Shataka, that is 100 poems. Palkuriki Somanatha wrote Baso Purana and Pandita Rajya Charitra. So these are some of the literary works produced during that point of time. Next, we come to what we call art and architecture. You all know that Kakatiyas are great temple builders, and according to Scindia Talwat, who has done considerable amount of research on the geographical spread of temples of the Kakatiyas, more than 10,000, and varieties of temples were built. Apart from temple building, they have also encouraged art of painting. Kridabhirama mentions what we call even the houses of the rich, houses of what we call interesting people. They have got innumerable number of Krishna Leela and erotic posters on the ceilings and walls of their houses, which means that they have encouraged painting as one of the arts. Then we have got only one such example found on the door frame of Nameswara temple at Pilalmarri, very close to Suryapet. So there are ample evidences that the Kakatiyas, right from Rudradeva till down to Prataprudra, have built innumerable number of temples throughout the kingdom. Yes, now we will come to the exact topic of the this thing is that temples of the Kakatiyas. The Kakatiya temples, they have built five kinds of temples. What to call five types of temples, namely Ekakota, that is single temple, and Dvikota, two temples either twin or opposite each other. Trikota, three temples, one at the center and two facing each other on next to it. So it becomes Trikota. There is a new and interesting variety called as Setushkota, wherein four temples are there, three on one side and one on the other side, which is known as Setushkota, that is a cluster of four temples, and Panchakota. It is again interesting in Telangana area. We have at two places called Panchakota, that is five temples. It is an extension of the Trikuta only. Trikuta we have at the center one, on either side flanking to it two temples, and next to it is again two more temples. It is called as Panchakota, and they have also built independent mandapas. They have also built like Kalyana Mandapa and other mandapas. They have also built what we call double-storied mandapas at the entrances at a good number of places, wherein we will see these things. Yes, Ekavira temple at Mugilcherla is considered as the Ekakota, only one temple, but all around we have got a Pradakshina Padam. And before I go into the details of these things, Kakatiyas, as subordinates to the Chalukyas of Kalyana, they have, in the beginning, they have adopted what to call the plan, elevation, and the architectural features of the Chalukyas of Kalyana for their temples. Later on, what happened was, from Rudra's time, they have totally deviated from the Chalukyas of Kalyana style and wanted to have their own signature on their architecture. Hence, it is called as the Kakatiya style of architecture from the middle of the 12th century onwards and continued up to the first quarter of the 14th century AD. This is an example for Ekakota. Similarly, the Ekakota variety continued even till to the end, but this is Ganapeswara group of temples wherein you have got 22 subsidiary temples, all are Ekakota temples around the Ganapeswara temple, which was built in 1254 AD. So this is only I am showing that thing, only example. Yes, this is again Trikuta temples. After Trikuta, we have Trikuta. Sometimes like the 1,000-pillar temple at Hanmakonda, we also have another temples called as the Trika. That is, in a row, three temples in a row. It is other way around to Trikuta temple, which is found at Ganapeswara Layam, Mukteswara temple at Kusumanchi in Khammam district. Next is that we are now coming to Trikuta. The exact Trikuta form in Andhra, we have got the Trikuta form right from 3rd century AD, and continued in the rock-cut caves of Vijayawada in 4th century AD. And the real structural forms of the Trikuta evolved during the Kalyani Chalukya time and perfected and bettered during the Kakatiyas of Warangal, Hanmakonda. This is Rudra Vasudeva Adityeswara temple at Hanmakonda, built by Rudradeva. You can now see. And the features I will explain that they have raised for the first time. This is for the first temple that was built on an elevated platform. You can see the elevated platform. I want to show you. Yes, this is an elevated platform on star-shaped platform. That is called Upapeta, is in star-shaped plan, and this is actually in tune with the Chalukyas of Kalyana. I think with a great respect to their forefathers, they have adopted this form. And why it is called as 1,000-pillar temple, you can see after the Adhisthana on the wall portion, each and every part of the wall is decorated with either pilaster motifs. Hence, it is called as 1,000-pillar temple. On the other hand, you also have that Kalyan Mandapa with many number of temples. Yes, this is the typical Trikuta temple in which at the center there is a temple. On either side there are two temples. This is at It is a Chaya Someswara Swami temple. This is also a temple to be known for the excellent technology of the Kakatiya period, that the shadow of the two pillars of Ardhamandapa of one of the temples fall continuously right from the morning till to the evening exactly on the Shivalinga. This is a very engineering marvel of the Kakatiya times. Yes, we have a better example of Setushkuta temple again at Pangal. This is known as Patala Someswara. On one side, we have three temples. On the other side, we have the fourth temple, and it is connected to a common Rangamandapa with some 32 pillars. And you can see the architecture. Yes, we also have, unfortunately, both the temples are dismantled and under reconstruction. I couldn't show you the exact photograph of Panchakuta temple of the Kakatiyas, but I can relate. This is in a different way of the Karnataka Govindahalli, but at Ramanjapura and Atmapur in Warangal district, all the temples they look like Trikuta, but two more temples, one on either side, added to the front Rangamandapa, is known as Panchakuta temple. Now, yes, they are known for independent multi-pillar temples. This is plan of the 1,000-pillar temple. Can you see? This is the Kalyan Mandapa of the 1,000-pillar temple. There are no 1,000 pillars, I recall. But there are 369 pillars to raise this mandapa, and some pillars are right directly from the floor inside. On the outside exterior, you have got on the star-shaped plan, and both Upapita and Adhisthana are on star-shaped. This is the uniqueness of this Kalyana Mandapa. And this was dismantled for reconstruction, and it is in the reconstruction stage. You can see the phase of reconstruction. It was before the ASI has taken as protected monument. This is inside of the 1,000-pillar temple, and these are on one corner. They have thoroughly documented for dismantling and reconstructed up to the roof level, and now this is in finishing stage on well laid out foundation, taking the modern engineering advice. They were also known for exclusively building double-storied mandapas. We wondered, I have dismantled and reconstructed this one, which is located at Malleswaram in Mahabubnagar district on the left bank of River Krishna. It was threatened under submergence of hydroelectric project, Srisalem hydroelectric project, and we shifted from what we call the submergence. And very interestingly, like the Pallava Narasimha, the pillars, you can say Rajasimha, etc., all the line pillars are there. This is dated to 1290 AD. There is an inscription of Rudramadevi at Malleswaram. Yes, now, as I mentioned earlier and repeating, the Kirti Toranas were erected. Toranas for the first time in this region was initiated by what we call the Chalukyas of Kalyana, but they were again further bettered by the Kakatiyas, and they have also erected huge monolithic pillars. These are known as not Dvajastambhas, as Deepastambhas. They are erected at many a time. Yes, these are the Kirti Toranas. You know, swans on either side of the Torana resembles the what we call the name and fame of Ganpati Deva Chakravarti, which is spread on all the four directions of the Kakatiya kingdom. Yes, now I actually want to come to Ramappa temple, which is considered as the crest jewel of the Kakatiya architecture and the magnum opus of the Kakatiya period. This is so beautifully built among what we call amidst green and lush area. Yes, you can see this is an aerial view, and some parts of the temple are now actually one temple is being under restoration. It is inside a compound wall, and the temple exactly is located on star shaped, and it was on either side you have got the subsidiary temples. We go into details of these temples. This is from the northeast corner. You can see the main temple. Then you can also see the subsidiary temple called as Kateswara. And again, you have an exclusive pavilion for inscription, what we call is Sasana Mandapa. Then you also have exactly on the opposite side, you have a Nandi Mandapa. for the Vahana, an exclusive temple built on similar plan and elevation. That is what we call the greatness of the Recharla Rudri Reddy, who built this temple and completed in 1213 AD, exactly 800 years ago. This is the plan of the temple of the Ramappa. You can, again, many such temples were built throughout the Kakatiya domain. This is Garbhagriha, Ardhamandapa, then there is a Rangamandapa. It has 9 bays. Hence, it is called as Navaranga Mandapa. And all around, you can see that star-shaped Upapita or Pradakshina Pada, circumambulatory path. And inside also, please notice that at the center, there are 4 pillars. And on all sides, you also have got 12 pillars. But on all around, there are 3 entrances. And from each entrance, you have got a bench-like structure. This is known as Kakshasanas in Kalyani Chalukya, and the same terminology adapted to the Kakatiya. Yes, now please have a glance of the wonderful masterpiece of the Kakatiya temple architecture, which is known as the Ramappa temple, the only one temple named after the sculptor called Ramappa. We do not have any inscriptional evidence nor literal reference to it, but legend has it that it was built by Ramappa, a great sculptor of the Ganapati Deva's time. And the very peculiarity of this temple is, as mentioned earlier, raised on elevated, what we call this Pradakshina Pada, star-shaped Pradakshina Pada, and the entire superstructure on Adhisthana, Padavarga, then your Prastara. Then we also have got a beautiful Vimana built of Kota and Coastal Lakshana. And this is again a unique in itself, that is the bricks used to construct this Vimana are floating on the water. It is known for a wonderful and rare technology, excellent par excellence of the Kakatiya period. So this is what we call one of the elevations of the Kakatiya temple. Yes, again close at the back side. You can look at the wall portion wherein only small slender pilasters are there, and for Karnakota portion you have at the center, the costa portion again is given what we call a stambhika motive, independent stambha, stopped by a small vimana and retakal panjara. We call it 2 pillars and 1 panjara is there on the top. And at the center, you have got an exclusive structure called, it is what we call is Kosta. We call it as Pancha Kostas, 3 on the Garbhagriha, 2 on either side of Ardhamandapa. We call it as Pancha Kostas. Yes, the Kostas, what we know is that it is 3-storied. We call it as a Mancha. Very, very, very interesting. And next, I want to come to the other parts. This is what we call the Upapita. And this is actually the Adhisthana with all the moldings. It will take lot of time. The decorations you can see on each and everything. The Gajadhara is there. And again, you have got many number of Vajrabandha motif and lotus medallions are there. And you can see many number of makaras are also there, so beautifully well decorated. And the manchas, what we call the costas on either side are decorated with perforated jalis. And you can see the entire wall portion is so beautifully decorated as if the pillars are emanating from the ground. And on the top, you have got beautiful eave slab, which is 6 feet 6 inches in width. So that the sculptors have taken all the care that water does not fall on the structure itself without causing any structural disintegration for the structure. That is actually the important aspect of this thing. Yes, you can also see what an amount of interest that these sculptors have taken in delineating each and every inch of the wall portion, that is pada or the Vitti portion, to decorate it with architectural motifs, architectural moldings, and also wonderful sculptures. For example, the temple at Nagalpadu built during the Kakatiya times was decorated with Chaturvinshati Vishnu Rupas. Again, dance coaches, varieties of things are there. So they have excelled in what we call temple architecture by that time with their own typical signature architecture called as the Kakatiya type of architecture. I want to bring to the notice of the August audience that the Kakatiyas adopted the what we call the buds, water drops at the end of the Prastara portion. This is known as Jaravali. You can see at every temple of the Kakatiyas, you find this particular motif, which is known as the dropping. After the rain is receded, you find that water drop is forming full form, formed into full, then it starts dropping down. At that point of time, a series of water drops just formed and ready to drop. It is known as Jaravali, mentioned by Samarangana, mentioned by Bhoja in his Samarangana Sutradhara. You know that Bhoja Paramara is a great temple builder. So again, one more same temple. And coming to this thing, yes, at the center portion of the costa, you see what an amount of interest that the sculptors have taken to delineate the base of the costa. Nowhere else in entire both Telugu state as we find it these things. Next is yes, the door frames. They have given enormous care. They have taken enormous care in delineating the door frames. We call the bottom as Bhuvanga, the top one as Patanga. On either side, we have the door gems called Yogastamba and Bhogastamba. You see what an amount of intricate designs that render beautiful aesthetic sense to the doorway. On the other hand, you also have simple doors using varieties of stones in different media, red sandstone and basalt. Basalt was used only to some limited areas like door frames, main linga, then central pillars, beams, and ceilings. So very limited purpose because the availability of black basalt is very difficult. Yes, on all the doors, what happened was you can see Ramalingeshwara, the main linga of the temple. On either side, what happens was you have got female forms on either side as Dwarapalikas. And what we notice is that they are in their prime youth and as if they have gone to forest. And you can see that fauna, which is actually in very well state of blossom. And you can consider, yes, on either side of the doorways, we find varieties of dance postures of that period. Of course, the Nutaratanavali was written so late after the temple was built. This temple was finished in 1213. Nutaratanavali was written somewhere in 1240. But there are varieties of dance forms. And we all know that by that time, we have got both Marga and Desi dance forms. But these things, what we call is Perini, Andhranatiam, and Aradhana, varieties of Ganika, Rudra Ganika, varieties of dance forms and Devadasis were there. So these are very, very interesting things. Yes, pillars were not left uncared. They were given equal importance like the door frames. You can see individual pillars, the base is individual, the shaft is individual, and on the shaft you also have a circular disc all around. We call it as Kudam. On that, it is topped by Falika Padma with beautiful decoration. On top of Falika Padma, we have got beautiful Podika with four sides clearly delineated. Then, and each and every part of the pillar also you can see meticulous carvings of the contemporary life, couple, then your Puranic scenes, etc. You can see this is a collatum of that area. On the other side, they represent what we call the musicians and dancers engaged in offering the Ranga Puja to the temple. Then Ranga, hence it is called as Ranga Mandapa. There are varieties of erotic postures in the temple, which was a common feature. And another again interesting feature of the Kakatiya architecture is they have built miniature shrines all around on the benches. That is Kakshasana portion to house small people because they do not have any Parivara shrines for Kakatiya temples. Henceforth, they wanted to accommodate the Parivara shrines or the gods of the same pantheon, and we have got temples for what we call Ganesha, Mahishasuramardhani, Bhairava, etc. on the inside the temple. We also have got varieties of things, erotic scenes, etc. And all the three sides, you have got exclusive entrances. Either side, you find what we call the beautiful dancer, the rural folk, the women of the rural areas. were meticulously delineated in their typical attire, decorations, and everything. These are some of them. Yes. One more, I am coming to close that the Ramappa temple, which is considered as the magnum opus of the Kakatiya temple architecture. Yes, please see the moldings of the Adhisthana. On the top, you have got that Kakshasanas with varieties of bands. And on the top, you have got those pillars seen from inside the Rangamandapa. And from the pillars up to the eaves length, you have got Dolrite sculptures known as Madanikas, Alasakanyas, and what we call Gajakesari motifs. And the Gajakesari, you all know, Rudramadevi, Ganapati Deva, and Pratap Rudra. These are called, given the titles of Gajakesari. Like that, na? Those motifs in symbolically represented. On all the three sides, we have got on the either side of the temple and on the frontage, we have got these beautiful damsels and wonderful dancers carved, attached like that bracket figures. These are not functional but decorative. Yes, can you notice varieties of figures, dances, Nagini, and varieties of these figures are there. They are so tall, and varieties of ornamentation, dress, etc. could be noticed. And this is Gajakesari motive. And very interestingly, we can see the dance coaches, the hunters, all the women were very much well trained in hunting, etc. because they live in rural areas and during their pastimes they go for hunting. And here, kindly look at on the left side, you have got that Nagini sculpture because Pashupata type of Saivism was so much popular. And on the right side, you have got a beautiful damsel, not damsel, beautiful contemporary lady that really wants to show her vanity. And at the center, it is very interesting for all of us to note that this lady, though tall, wants to look more taller than the contemporary woman in the street. So she is wearing that high-heeled chapel. This really reveals the attitude of the fashions and innovative skills of the contemporary period of the Kakatiyas, high-heel sandals. It's very, very, very interesting as early as 1213 AD. Yes, now you see other dance coaches, musicians engaged. They are perfect in their art and craft. Yes, the sculptors have given enough importance to decorate the underneath and either on either side of the beams with the Siva Purana, Siva Leela, and varieties of themes. And the center of the door frame, you have got Tripurari, Brahma, Vishnu, then Ganesha, and other forms are also there. The central door, the central roof of the Rangamandapa of the Kakatiya Ramappa temple is very, very, very intricately designed. It is on four sides. You see the underneath of the what you call beams carved with beautiful sculpture. Then you have got octagonal, these things, what we call is that Konavatta and Sadaravatta, as far as Tamil Silpa Shastras are concerned, these are angulars and squares. And at the center, you have got again beautifully decorated central portion with a ceiling drop, with having a Nataraja in things. On all these things, you find Ashtadikpalas, and again with their Vahanas are also there. Very beautiful. Yes, the sculptor has given equal importance on par with the main god Ramalingeshwara. And in typical miniature form, he created a house, a garage for the vehicle of Nandi. This is that Nandi Mandapa, so beautifully carved. Yes, this is from on other side. It also has got what we call the star-shaped Pradakshina Pada, elevated platform, temple in typical form. Then can you notice the sculptor has given maximum importance to decorate the Nandi more than he decked with all the jewelry that he could do, and he forgot his wife to decorate. But his entire concentration is on decorating the bull. The bull is so close to the man because it helped in what we call agricultural operations and many more things. No? So this is what we call a wonderful creation of that wonderful reflection of the creative genius of the sculptors of the Kakatiya period. Now you can see varieties of jewelry that was decked on the body, right from the legs, the body, everything. Yes, there are subsidiary shrine. The temple builder is what we call Raicherla Rudir Reddy. He also wanted to construct temples in the name of his mother and father. His father's name Kateswara temple, and on the other side Kacheswara, her mother's name. He built it on the same plan, but in lesser magnitude. At the entrance for the main temple as well as the subsidiary temples, we have got elephants as welcoming gesture. Yes, the entire temple complex is enclosed with a compound wall. You all know that building compound wall for stability as well as security. Rakshadham Sobhardham Cha Prakaram Prakalpayet. That is, as mentioned in Selpa and Agam Sastras, construction of compound wall is a must. And Raicherla Rudra has taken equal importance to safely securing the what we call inside complex by constructing very huge compound wall. Then there are other temples built on the tank bund. They are looking for a helping hand. I think in the near future, these temples will also be restored under proper care. Yes, there are some other temples in very bad state of preservation. And yes, now move a little toward Ramappa temple. There we have got beautiful temple complex known as Ganapeswara temple. It was not built by Raicherla Rudir Reddy, not by Ganapati Deva, but during Ganapati Deva's regime, but by a man called Ganapati Reddy. He is none other than son of Raicherla Rudir Reddy, who built the Kakatiya temple, Ramappa temple at Palampet, very close to it. Yes, the peculiarity of this temple is the central Ganapeswara temple is more or less equal, or more or less, it looks like the Ramappa temple only, but on a little magnitude, it is bigger. The superstructure has fallen down, but all around to it is there are 22 subsidiary shrines. All are Ekakota temples, one is Trikota. Then we can remind that these Vimanas are the superstructures reflect varieties of forms, that is Famsana, Kalinga, then Gurjara, Ganga, etc. Vimanam San Navati Bhavet is mentioned in Sarvasastras. There are 96 varieties of Vimanas, and you can find 22 varieties of Vimanas here at Ganpur, built during the Ganapati Deva's regime. And these are some of the testimonials to the architecture of the Kakatiyas. Yes, these are some other views. And what happened was, this is before the construction. I have dismantled a temple. I stood a chance to renovate this group of temples as early as 2001 and 2. This is after renovation. Yes, this is what we call the current state of affairs of the Ganapeswara group of temples. Next is, this is exactly the entrance of the Ganapeswara temple. Yes, while we were actually renovating, removing the earth from, aggregated earth from the complex, we noticed beautiful sculptures of Shivatwara Palace as well as Channakeswara also. Yes, these are some of the beautiful sculptures that we retrieved or we recovered from the complex of Ganapeswara temple. Yes, there are some of these temples, as I said, that they have chosen both granite and red sandstone apart from the black basalt to decorate the temples in their own fashion. And yes, for before I conclude, I want to tell you, since I have dismantled a temple at these things, I have dismantled this temple, documented the temple, know the basements, how the sandbox foundation was used, and again on the either side, it is a two-walled structure for the wall, and beneath the floor level, we have got the sandbox, etc. Next one is known as what we call, I will tell you, yes, I am not going into the details. Yes, how the stones were transported. For construction of temples, they need quarries. Quarries are located very nearby. Some are very far away. As soon as they extract the stone to the required size and volume, they start shifting them. Yes, one such example we noticed from what we call is that from Rayachur Fort. It was dated 1294 AD by Gona Vittal Reddy. during 1294 is what we call the regnal period of Pratap Rudradeva from Warangal, that is Pratap Rudra. And there is an inscription by this time. This is a linear drawing on the side of the doorway of the Kakatiya fortification. It is very interesting and indispensable source material for understanding the level of technology or building technology of the Kakatiyas as far as transportation of the huge stone blocks used for temple construction. Yes, now I would like to give varieties of joinery went into making these things. You know how individual pieces were joined together under socket and cylinder system, and dowel joints were used. It is not new for Kakatiyas. It was as old as the Gupta temples right from 4th century AD. Beams were joined in a different way in swastika fashion. It is known as what we call Sandhi Bandhana Kadanaihi. I want to read and refer how Kakatiyas have built these temples. And one inscription from Kondipatti, it reveals that Prakaro Jayiti Trikotam Ahitastattena Nirmapitaha Suslistaihi Kramashirshakaihi Ruchi Ruchitopari Nilopalehi Kalpitaha Yatcha Lakshita Sandibandha Kandhanadeka Sila Takshakaihi. Yes, it reveals the what we call the engineering skill in not only delineating varieties of architectural members of a temple and mandapa, but also in joining together with the structural stability. And these temples were built. Santaksheva Mahiyasi Ivam Silam Yatnat Samuttaritaha. What a wonderful description of the contemporary period. This was built by a temple, Trikota temple was built by Saunda Senani, the military general of Kakatiya Ganapati Deva. And these few lines give us ample evidence on the engineering technology of the temple construction during the Kakatiya time. So, very, very interesting thing, joinery. Next one is that I would like to place on record my sincerest thanks to THT team for arranging the wonderful series THT Fest 2022, and in which I stood a chance. Again, thanks to the organizers for giving an opportunity for me. Thanks to the audience. Before I close my the talk, I would like to bring to the kind notice of the August audience and again the organizers that earlier I was CEO for Cultural Center of Vijayawada and Amaravati, established by Mahalakshmi Group of companies, which way back in 2015 and continued up to 2020 first, and now it is renamed as Pleach India Foundation. Earlier CCVA is continuing its effects, but it is renamed Amaravati. The Cultural Center of Vijayawada and Amaravati is renamed as Pleach India Foundation. And we are concentrating on curating what we call the heritage spaces, and we are taking up a flagship program called Preserve Heritage for Posterity among one of our activities. And we have so far visited more than 400 villages. Pleach India Foundation has visited more than 400 villages, sensitizing the local communities and involving them into looking at their own heritage, preserving them for posterity. And thanks to our mentor of the Mahalakshmi Group of companies, Mr. Harichandra Prasad, and Chairperson Pleach India Foundation, Dr. Tejaswini Yarlagadda. Thank you once again for the time that you have spared to patiently listening to my talk with an opportunity provided by Tamil Heritage Trust. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shivanand
I have crossed the time given.
No, sounds fine. You know, it's as if like like a flow of river.
Sir, no.
Words flow through you. I was really enjoying the way in which the passion with which you presented. Can you close this presentation so that we can get to?
I am closing, Badri sir. I am closing.
It was really an enjoyable presentation, sir. Certainly,
Thank
it was
you.
fantastic.
I think
I have other questions to ask besides the presentation, because we can see that you are a unique personality. You are a Sthapati.
sir,
You have been involved in conservation.
sir.
I can ask hundreds of questions about Kakatiya architecture. Such an opportunity will always emerge. There are other
I
experts.
will take 2 days leave and come to Chennai so that you can ask a series of questions, sir.
Yes, certainly. But with you, I'm going to ask you other questions.
Please.
Please bear with me. Now, you did mention that you were involved in the conservation work in Sri Sailam project.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And a whole bunch of temples had to be.
Under the leadership of Padma Shri S.M. Ganapati Sthapati. He was Chief Sthapati of Endowments Department. I was Assistant Sthapati to him.
Excellent, sir. And I assume this includes the Alampur group of temples.
Yes. My career began at Alampur only in 1978.
We should really thank you and your entire team of your seniors, your other people, for having preserved and shifted that group, and as well as the Papanashi group, all those temples.
Yes, sir.
Because when you actually go there, when I went there, there was no way we could even recognize that these temples were moved over tens of kilometers.
Yes. 18 kilometers. That Kodali Sangameswara was shifted to 18 kilometers.
Unbelievable, sir. Unbelievable. Please tell us a little bit more about that. We will come back to Kakatiya, but I want to know
provided there is little time, I want to tell something on transplantation of temples in which I was part and parcel of it.
Please do so.
Between 1978 to 1989. One thing, sir, there was the construction of hydroelectric project across the river Krishna at Sri Sailam. Caused to inundate 102 villages in Mahabubnagar and Kurnool districts. People were moved. They were given package, R&R package, and the cattle was also shifted along with them. All their belongings were shifted. Some houses were shifted, some were let like that only. But because they belong to individuals who are alive, they could take all those belongings along with them, along with their family members, along with cattle, along with other. But temples were let free because God is not alive. Then what happened was some what you call philanthropists, whatever you say, they approached the government. Why can't we do it? Then government has constituted a committee called High Power Committee, in which they have got they delegated powers to select temples which are to be transplanted, which are to be scale modeled. So like that, we were chosen for that campus selection. You cannot believe a sculptor got a campus selection.
Okay.
Back in 1978, I was selected on campus in SV Traditional Sculpture and Architecture Institute at Tirupati. Like that, thanks to our Tamil mentors, thanks to them once again, because who really made us to learn many more things which were laid down in Silpasastras, practically shown while we dismantled the temples. Then again, we dismantled the temple after documentation through clockwise, and we reconstructed anti-clockwise. Ultimately, we got the same temple what was dismantled. And every day we recollected the greatness of Mayan, the great sculptor, and many more our ancestors. Thanks to Ganapati Sthapatiji and his team who were kind enough to train us. Then coming over these things, sir, many of the temple pieces during the transportations were broken, and not many, a few. We restored with the same what we call motifs and same style, one or two places. And again, what happened was, while we were dismantling, some were again lost their these things. So that is one example. And we laid modern foundation. On the foundations only we re-erected, assuring strength, what we call strength, structural strength for at least a few hundreds of years. So our experience, but for the benefit of the August audience, I would like to tell that the documentation of the entire temples that were threatened in submergence was brought out in 2 volumes by Indological Research Institute, Pondicherry. That is, the name of the book is known as Enter Sri Sailam at Alampur. Is the name of the book in 2 volumes, Tome 1 and Tome 2. They call Tome 1 and Tome 2. It is all thoroughly documented, each and every village. They documented the temples, sculptures, inscriptions, whatnot, fortifications, etc. But it is in French. But at the end of the volume, first volume, which is the text volume, we have got English translation of all the gist of the entire survey within 40 pages. That is very much useful. And the volume 2 is entire documentation with photographs, with labels, etc. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful. We hear a lot about what happened in Egypt, Abu Simbel, when the whole, on the Nile, when the entire temple was shifted. Yes, I understand the size and volume is something enormous, and you had to basically cut it into pieces, then move it. Yes. Fortunately for us, in the temples that you are dealing with, they're relatively smaller in size. I mean, talking about compared to Egypt, they are also nice, neat, simple blocks. Yes. So you can actually remove the blocks, put the blocks back, but it requires a complete video documentation. I mean, video reconstruction. I mean, today we cannot do video documentation. Yes. But it is really worthwhile to come up with a video documentary on how this whole thing happened.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would love to work with you to see what is possible in this particular space.
Unfortunately, during those days, what happened is only photos were taken as part of the documentation, but not even either ASI or State Department of Archaeology, in which I worked then, were video shooted, sir.
Right. That's okay. So it has to be completely reconstructed in a sense. Yes, there is no video documentation, but still, I think something may be possible. Yes, so even Shiv Shankar Babu is suggesting maybe we should organize a complete lecture on that, of what happened during that time.
Yes, there are a few people. I will tell you, sir. One or two people in State Department of Archaeology. Archaeology, I am the only one people alive who participated in this temple transplantation. But on the other hand, our Padma Shri KK Muhammad sir, also shifted 2 temples and restored a cluster of temples at
in Bateswara. Yes.
Example.
Amazing work. Yeah, we will also be inviting him to give a talk on his topic. Excellent. I mean, I would like to talk more about it, but I don't want to take you away from at least answering a couple of questions on the Kakatiya architecture.
Yes.
We will come back to this topic and other topics with you.
Thank you.
We are totally amazed by the kind of work that you have been doing. Now,
permit me to tell that we would like to organize similar festivals, joining hands with our THT with special reference to our.
Absolutely, sir.
He will design that one. We will join hands in organizing.
We will certainly do so. We would love to be working with you on this. Now, a couple of questions quickly before the next speaker starts.
Yeah.
Gobi Selvanathan asks, though you mentioned that Kakatiya sort of emerged from the early Chalukyas and built their own, are there any specific points to note which are very, very unique to Kakatiyas?
Yes.
Which can be seen by just looking at the temples?
Yes, sir. Now, for example, right from the up to the Rudradeva's time, that is 1263, when he built the Rudreswara temple, so-called, or it is called as Trikuta temple, 1000-pillar temple at Hanmakonda, they have close resemblance to certain Kalyani Chalukyan temples. But what happened was, right from the bottom till to the top, are decoration on the pillars and door frames, a little bit resemblance we can find, but from Ganapati Deva's time onwards, total departure from Kalyani Chalukyas, because They want to have their signature architecture. Every political dynasty, as we affiliated with the Pallava architecture, Pallavas will have their own manifesto of architecture. Similarly, Pandyas have, Cholas have, Chalukya Cholas have, and similarly, each and every dynasty will have their own manifesto of architecture. That is known Paramaras, Gurjaras, Pratiharas, Sena and Pala, coming down to south, the Pandyas of Madura. Every dynasty has their own signature. They don't gel with each other. They want to have their own mark. So that much creative talent, what we call Silpinam Yukti Bhukti Macharet. They are bestowed with what we call that creative genius, Yukti, innovative skill, and that only gives them Bhukti. So every dynasty wants a customized architecture for them. So Kakatiya architecture, Hoysala architecture, Chola architecture, Ganga architecture, like that, na sir. Even Chalukyas of Badami, they are the masters, forerunners of experiments in stone. And Pallavas, thanks to Pallavas and Chalukyas, then all the regional styles evolved with their own typical styles on the foundations of experimentation by Chalukyas of Badami and Pallavas of Kanchi.
Okay.
Sir.
So one of the things, for me, the first thing that hit me when you started presenting and you started talking about Ekakuta, Dvikuta, Trikuta, etc.
Yes.
It looks so much like what the Hoysalas have done.
Yes,
just because the Hoysala lecture was also something that happened yesterday.
Yes.
And the exact pattern, the way they had visualized the Dvikuta. See, Ekakuta, more or less, every temple is Ekakuta.
Yes, sir.
But only here we see with Hoysalas and with Kakatiyas, you have the Dvi, Tri, Chatushkuta and the Panchakuta.
Yes, yes.
Almost on a similar kind of a model. That is
contemporaries and exchange of views from one place to another place. And what we call migration of sculptors, sir. Sculptors from Gadak during the Hoysala period have come over to Andhra and built temples at Samarlakota. We have got that Saraswati Ganapada Pankaja Brahmara. A Karnataka sculpture group has come over to Samarlakota in East Godavari district and built Kumararama.
Right.
Such things were, and I will tell you, during the Chalukyan, Badami Chalukyan time, that Pattadakal temple, Haina sir, Pattadakal.
Right.
The inscriptions carved on the door jamb refers to that Venginati Velanati Gondaya Sesina Pani. It is in Telugu inscription. He is from Venginadu. He is from Velnadu. Gondaya is a Telugu name. Like that, what happens was peregrination of the artisans from one area to another was possible during this time on invitation or for want of livelihood. And I want to tell you that Sivasankar Babu sir also told in his last speech that sculptors from Madura went to partake in Konark temple because his wife, Narasimhadeva's wife was a Pandyan princess. They went here now, we can see like that, sir.
Correct. Which leads me to another question that Vijay Kumar has asked. Kakatiyas could build these structures, meaning there were only a certain number of skilled artisans available at that time. Where did these artisans come from and what is their origin?
No, artisans are only local, sir. Local, what happens was, there are Gurukulas or Pattar. We call it as Pattar, na Tamil. Guru, from Gurukula, from father to son, from son to grandson, or within that family, there are, for example, one Macharla inscription of 1111 AD. 1111 AD refers to that. There is a family of, now one Ramachari, Nagarjanakonda Ramachari, his family was known for training for others. They have got Vastrukshetra Vidaha, Prayogopajivanti, Chaturvida Prasadeshu Prayogopajivanti. They were experts in 4 types of prasadas and they bettered their skill in research and development. Prayogopajivanti. Such inscriptions are there, but what happened was, unlike Hoysala sculptors like Mallikamma, we do not have many names of the Kakatiya period, but we have 18 names of the sculptors during the Kakatiya period. Only 18. I wrote a book on silk films in early and medieval Andhra, published by Vastu Vignani Ganapati Stapati way back under Vastu Vedic Research Foundation in 1997.
Okay.
Sir.
Wonderful, sir. There are many more questions that I would like to ask and
Please,
talking to you.
Please.
But the time is really pressing and we need to go on to the next lecture. But it was absolutely wonderful. In fact, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. And, the comments on the YouTube channel, I can see that people are really thrilled. Let me invite Ashwin to thank you and also introduce the next speaker. Over to you, Ashwin.
Thank you, Badri. Dr. Sivanagi Reddy, sir, thank you so much for such a mesmerizing talk. I really can't think of another way to describe it. I think it's a very, very rare honor to have a practicing Sthapati to actually come and address us and talk to us, one, about historical architecture, but also this entire body of work of transplanting a temple and moving it to safer ground. There's so much I think we have learned as an audience listening to you over the last 90 minutes or so. One, of course, the Rashtrakuta origins of the Kakatiyas itself, the fascinating story of Rudrama Devi, and like Badri was saying, the Ekakuta, Dvikuta, Trikuta style of architecture. I think some striking visuals in your presentation. I think what stood out for us was this use of black basalt stone and how visually alluring it was. It kind of highlighted the very sculptures which the Kakatiya artisans made. And only half humorously, sir, you showed us a visual of an illustration of how the Kakatiyas transported stone, but I think you and your team have transported entire temples itself, and I think we need a visual inscription on that as well. So thank you so much, sir, for addressing us. I think it's been an invaluable addition to this Indology festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward.
And now I have the privilege of introducing you all to our next guest, Dr. Paromita Das. Give me a minute. Let me just share the screen. All right. Dr. Paromita Das is a professor and former head of the Department of History at the Gauhati University, where she's been serving for the last 25 years, since 1997. Prior to that, she worked for 4 years immediately after her PhD as a lecturer in the Arya Vidyapeeth College, also in Gauhati. Dr. Das earned her PhD in 1993 from the Gauhati University. Dr. Paromita Das was the first ICCR visiting professor in Indian studies in the chair of history at the Mohammed University at Rabat, Morocco, where she served for 2 years in 2019 and 20. She's also an alumnus of Gauhati University in Assam, where she completed her postgraduate in history in 1991 before her PhD, also specializing in ancient Indian history. Dr. Das has presented more than 50 papers in national and international conferences of repute. She's also a published author, having published 3 books, one on the terracotta sculptures of Assam in 2018, a book on the history and archaeology of Northeast India, which came out in 2007, and very interestingly, a book on literature, a book called Geeti Kavi, the poetry of Parvati Prasad Barua, which came out in 2014. Dr. Das is also the joint editor of 2 books, The Archaeological Heritage of South Asia and The Heritage Northeast. This apart, Dr. Das has also contributed around 50 research articles in various books and journals on history. She was the editor journal of History, Art and Archaeology, the Journal of History and Culture in the years 2017 and 2018. And very specially, Dr. Paromita Das has also been the official nominee of the Ministry of Culture, the Government of India, to the SARC regional seminar held in 2015 at Sri Lanka. So as all of you can see, we have a much celebrated and decorated person to take us through the unique history of the Home dynasty and their unique architectural style. So very warm welcome to you, Dr. Paromita Das, and we're eagerly looking forward to your talk. You can start now, madam.
Yes, please. Ma'am, do you need any help? So you may want to mute your YouTube, window as well.
Thoroughly, everyone enjoyed it, and comment on the YouTube channel. I think
The YouTube window can be closed, madam. You can just stay on Zoom.
thank you, and also audio.
Dr. Das, can you hear us? Dr. Das, can you hear us?
If you need help, we can even have the presentation up and help you. If you need any help, could you please ask? We can tell you exactly what you need to do. Your speaker may have a problem. I mean, can you just 1 second? I'll have someone give you a call.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. We can hear you. Can you bring up your presentation, please? We can help you with that if you need help.
So should I share the screen?
Please do share the screen. Please share the screen. Excellent. You are on.
It's okay?
Yes, please.
I still can't hear you. I don't know why.
That's okay. Please continue.
I'm starting now.
Please.
And if there is a problem, I have kept my phone on silent, and I'm online with Dr. Shiv Shankar Babu. So if there's a problem and the signal or something goes, you can WhatsApp me there. Okay. Sure. Thank you, everyone. And I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to make a presentation on the Ahom dynasty and its unique architectural features. So I shall start now.
Yes, please.
Okay, okay, who were the Ahoms? So the Ahoms are basically an ethnic group who belong to the Tai Kadai family, and they are found spread over parts of South and Southeastern Asia in present-day Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, etc. They belong to the Tibeto-Burman linguistic family, and the original homeland was Maolung in the region of present-day Burma, that is Myanmar, and the province of Yunnan in southern China. They migrated to the Brahmaputra Valley in the 13th century. At a later period, they would be followed by other Thai groups like the Aitons, the Turungs, Phakes, Singphos, and Khamtis. The Ahoms were led by the Prince Saolung Sukapha, who was accompanied by around 700 followers, including many nobles and officers. Now, Sukapha was a visionary, and he entered the upper reaches of the Brahmaputra Valley in 1228 as after crossing the Patkai Hills, as recorded in the Buranjis. These are the Ahom chronicles. And by using a judicious mixture of coercion and friendship, he subjugated the Naga tribes in the frontier regions and also brought the Morans and Borahis under his rule, who were, local chieftains and all that. They had approached him. So at that time, in the 13th century, when Sukapha enters Assam from the east, we find that the Kachari kingdom was there. Kachari kingdom, or the chieftains, they were occupying the region of Upper Assam. And with the advent of the Ahoms, they gradually migrated westward and settled in the region of present-day Dimapur, which is in the state of Nagaland. That is state of Nagaland today. And the Ahoms ultimately found the region of Soraido in present-day Sipsagar district, to be found eminently suitable and established the first capital city there. And over the course of the next 5 centuries, they would succeed in occupying the entire Brahmaputra Valley and extend their jurisdiction to the Naga Hills, as well as the Jaintia Hills. Now, up to 1496, the Ahom territories were limited. The river Dikho in Sipsagar forming its western boundary, and the Brahmaputra its northern boundary, and the expansion of the Ahom kingdoms occurred under Suhungmung, who conquered the Chutia kingdom and subjugated the Kasaris, forcing them to leave Dimapur and settle in the area of Maibong in the present Dima Hasao district. He also brought other petty chieftains under his rule, and the Koch ruler also acknowledged his suzerainty. And it was under Suhungmung that you can say that the entire Brahmaputra Valley up to the Korotoya in present-day northern Bengal was occupied by the Ahoms. Now, the expansion of the kingdom naturally enriched the royal treasury, while political stability provided an atmosphere for social cultural activities, including patronage of art and architecture. Now, what you find is, initially, we do not find any temples, and the Ahoms had their own indigenous religion centering upon ancestor worship and revering the Somdo. This Somdo was an object which they had brought with them from their original homeland. At Soraido on the Langkuri Parbat, we find the remains of the shrine known as Deokhal, or abode of the divine. But today there is no temple there. Soraido was also the Ahom necropolis, and here we find hundreds of burial mounds of Ahom royalty and nobility, and the mounds are known as Maidam, wherein reside the departed spirits before they go to heaven, the abode of Lengdong, who later came to be identified with the Hindu god Indra. Now, the temple building activities of the Ahoms ensured only after they came under the influence of Hinduism during the reign of Sudangpa, who is also known as Bamuni Kaur because he grew up in the house of a Brahmin in the Habung region of present Dhemaji district on the north bank of the upper Brahmaputra Valley. Now, when we talk about the Ahom temples, they can be broadly classified into 2 groups. The first phase is from the beginning of Ahom rule, that is 1228 up to 1681. Now, in this phase, the Ahoms were engaged in expansion of the kingdom and also had to deal with invaders from the west. That is the Turko-Afghans, who had by this time occupied Bengal, and later they would also occupy Coach Bihar, and later at period the Mughals. Hence, the Ahoms did not devote much resources to temple building activities up to the reign of Sulikha, or the boy king Lora Raja. Now, in 1682, actually not, sorry, 1681, it is 1682. What you find is all the invaders, especially the Mughals, are chased beyond the Mana river, and the entire Brahmaputra Valley now comes under a peaceful regime. And there is no more war from the west or invaders from the west. And in this period of peace, there was patronage of temple architecture on a large scale, up till we come under the that is occupation by the British in 1826 following the Anglo-Burmese War. Now, the series of lectures which have been organized from 2nd June, and today is the last day, they are focused on the early medieval temples, that is from 8th to 13th. Unfortunately, in Assam, we do not have any standing temple remains prior to the 15th century. So in the 15th century, we have the Kamakhya temple, but actually it was also that is rebuilt by the Koch rulers, and only the Bada portion of the temple had survived. Now, this is on the Kamakhya hillside, and these give us idea of what early temples in Assam probably looked like. So as you can see, they look like a typical Nagara Shikhara, like Nagara temples as we find in Orissa, but these are rock cut. But throughout the Brahmaputra Valley, throughout the length and breadth of the valley, on both banks of the river, the north bank and the south bank, we have found extensive remains of temples. The whole problem is that Assam lies in a highly seismic zone, and earthquakes are very frequent here. Moreover, it is an area of heavy rainfall. So the creepers and other vegetation, especially the seeds of the people tree, when they are brought by birds and deposited in temple structures, they grow roots and break up the temples. The mortar also used was not, generally mud. And from the remains which are scattered all over the valley, what we have found is from the period, say around the 8th, earliest temple remains, of course, we find reference in inscriptions to the 5th century, which was a cave temple in the Guwahati outskirts itself. But it is just a rudimentary cave with an inscription to Balabhadra Swami. But there does not appear to be any construction there. It is just rock cut. And what you find is from the time structural temples are found around from the 8th century, and we have remains of early structures in the 7th, but we are not sure whether they were actually temples. And so these you find that is scattered throughout, and you find massive lintels, etc. And all of them appear to have been components of the Nagara style of architecture. So this is in the Kamakya hillside, and as you can see here, the Amalaka Shila and the Kalasha and everything is there. Looks like a typical rudimentary Nagara temple. Now this is Sri Surya Pahar in western Assam. This is before the Ahom start, because just want to give a brief outline of what happened before the Ahom start the temple building activities. And this is a cave, and inside this cave, we find Rishabhanatha and Neminatha, etc. And elsewhere also. So these were like rock cut shrines. This is another rock cut shrine. It is very small. One cannot enter inside, and there is a Shiva Linga here, as you can see. Here, this is a close-up. And we find the remains of a brick temple in Surya Pahar. So this is from top of the hill. I had taken a photo, and this is remains only of the plinth has remained. And a lot of terracotta remains and sculptures were found here, which were apparently embedded in the walls, but now they're kept in the museum. But I'm not going to focus on that, as we are going to concentrate mainly on the architecture. Now, this is the excavated brick temple in Surya Pahar. It was under the ASI, and this is the map they have drawn of the plinth. Now, we find stone temples. Like you can see, this is Rajmohan Nath Archaeological Park. And you find this remains of a gateway of a temple. Then the temple mound is there. This CI sheet structure is of course new, but the temple itself is old. And here you find a huge Amalaka with a Kalasha. These are other remains at Bamuni Hill and Singri on the north bank. The former photo was on the south bank. So here you can see Kirti Mukhas, you can see parts of a lintel of a temple, where again you find these small shikhara-like structures, and you find scroll designs, etc. So these are the rubbles in Singri, and this is from Bamuni Hill. Now, according to A.K. Sharma, in the foothills of Garo Pahar, that is a place called Bhaitbari, and A.K. Sharma of the ASI, who conducted the excavations, he believes there was a massive temple complex and what is believed to be part of a Buddhist stupa. Partial excavations have revealed groups of brick temples along a tank and recovered an abundance of terracotta plaques. And we have these terracotta plaques have tenants, and you find many deities are there, Puranic and deities, etc. Now today, like when I had gone a few years ago, this is all that remains of the brick temple. So it had a rectangular mandapa, and you can see the mandapa had a sort of projection here, Ratha projection, and the Garbhagriha was smaller in size. And there's a lot of rubble. So this is the scenario actually of early Assam. And the standing temples which we have, the majority of them belong to the 17th and 18th centuries only. And this was a radiating temple with Shiva Lingas, and there were 8 arms like that of an octopus. So it would come like this, and there were Shiva Lingas placed there. This wall is of course new to protect it. So you find like it radiates out like this, like the arms of an octopus. And it was an octagonal temple, brick and rubble. Now at Bamgaon also, we find the remains of a temple, and you can see the remains of these temple pillars here. So this is what we find throughout Assam. Just the plinth areas have survived. Now this we are coming back to Nonaut in Hojai district. So again, this is old. You can find the door sill here, door sill made of stone, but the temple itself is made of bricks. And this mound, you can see the brick courses. And this is the Shivalinga. And a lot of rubble. And there were 9 mounds here. So it was called Nonaut, or 9. This has been cleaned up by the State Archaeology Department. And you find the remains of this open Pradakshina Patha. And there is no Pradakshina inside the Mandapa, and the Shivalinga was there. And outside we find the huge Pranala. This is the Shiva, that is Shivalinga in Jonipet. And from here it goes underground, and the walls are very thick, nearly a meter thick actually. And you find the mouth of the Pranala there. Now again, this is in Joginath, Jogijand in Hojai district of Assam. And here you find that there are 2 brick temples. Mostly they are mounds, which I showed you earlier, but only 2 brick temples. And here we find, and we have no inscriptions. Our ancient rulers were very careless about recording dates. They never bothered to say who built this temple or whatever. Although we do find references to patronage of temples, but no specific dates or inscriptions are found. And these are terracotta plaques. Many of them have fallen out. And this is the only instance of early temple where we find there are 2 temples at the site which have these terracotta plaques on 3 sides. Now this is in Upper Assam. It is a place called Mohanabari in Dibrugarh district, where we find the plinth, but it is only half a plinth. The other half was washed away by the Brahmaputra river, which is a very turbulent river. And this part was like earlier, it was a pre-Ahom temple. And later we find that it had been repaired during the Ahom period using sunsurki. Sunsurki, that is limestone mortar, etc., made from shells. Now this is a plinth of a circular shrine. The front part of the mandapa is rectangular, and the part of the Garbhagriha is semicircular. And you find Vidyadharas, elephants, and then Kirtimukhas and other lotus petals and other geometrical designs, etc. So these are some, just I wanted to show you some of the pre-Ahom temples. Now at Soraido, which I said it was a necropolis, although it is not a temple, just wanted to show you what the moedams look like. And the Ahom's worldview was that the world was 8-sided. So the moedams also are octagonal, as you can see from this map. And there are hundreds of moedams, big and small. So the kings and nobility, they had big moedams, which would be huge hemispherical domes. So something like a stupa, but it will be octagonal. And on top, this temple is there, and this was excavated by the ASI. But the majority of the that is, except for 10, 12, they have not been excavated. So inside is a chamber with grave goods and other things. So this is something unique, and now it is placed in the tentative UNESCO heritage list. So although it is not a temple, I just wanted to show you something from Ahom architecture, because this is unique, not found anywhere else in India. And more than 300 to 400 moedams are found there. Now, recording as regards the patronage of temple building, it is in 1480 when the Buronjis record the reconstruction of a temple by the Ahom king Siusengpa at Nagshankar in the present Bishwanath district. However, this temple does not exist now, and a modern temple was constructed at the site covering the ruins, if any existed. Now in 1532, Suhungmung constructed a temple on the banks of the Korotoya in North Bengal to commemorate his victory over the Bengal Sultan. But this too has perished. Now from the time of Pratap Singha, that is at a later period After like they adopted, many of them were Hinduized and assimilated into the Hindu religion, although they continued to practice the what you call ancestor worship, and they still do. So you find that they adopted Hindu names. So Siusengpa, he adopted the Hindu name Pratap Singha, and he constructed 3 temples according to the Burangi. So this was all in Upper Assam. That is 2 on the south bank in Neghariting and Gorgaon, and 1 on the north bank at Vishwanath. Gorgaon was a new capital city established by Suhungmung's son Suklengmung in 1540. Now the temple at Neghariting was washed away by the river Brahmaputra, and there is no information about its architectural details. The temple in Vishwanath is in a ruinous state, and the Shikhara is the irregular mass of bricks over a Saptaratha ground plan. However, the projections of the Rathas are smaller in dimension as compared to the length. Similar temple plinths are also found in Baman and Abhayapuri in Gwalpara, however, without the superstructure. Now, the only thing which survives of that period, and that is early temples, is the Gorokhya Dol. Gorokhya means a cow herd in Assamese, and there is a legend about how we find that local cow herds, like when they used to play at this spot, and they would elect one among themselves to settle the disputes. So whoever sat on this sat on the mound, he would give very wise judgments. So it was later dug up, and it was thought to be sacred, and the Ahoms built a temple there, because although they practiced that is what you call ancestor worship, they patronized the religion of their subjects. At present, is houses a sculpture of Narasimha. It is a small temple, 8 meters in height. It has an octagonal vimana preceded by rectangular mandapa. The outer walls of the sanctum have arched niches as a decorative element, sans any sculptural motive. The Ahoms, as I said earlier, they conceive the world as being octagonal. Hence, most of the temples are octagonal, as are the moidans and also the coins. Now, this is what remains today of the Gorokhya Dol. So it has a very stunted appearance, sort of. It does not resemble the Dochala of Bengal, but something akin to it. And these Devakoshtas or niches are empty. And this sort of, there is an arch neath, more like a mihrab design. So this could be Islamic influence, because what you find is from the time when the Ahom started building and the preceding period, there was a large gap of nearly 300 years because of that is the warlike situation which was going on. Assam was beset, that is, we were invaded by the Mughals 17 times. And prior to that, the Turco-Afghan rulers, starting from the 13th century onwards, they invaded Assam in 1205, then again in 1227, then again in 1257. At one time, Guwahati also went under the Turks, later the Mughals. So there was continuous conflict till 1682. So the artisans of the preceding period, due to lack of patronage, they must have migrated elsewhere. So this is what remains today of the Gorokhya Dol. Now Gorokhya Dol is on the south bank, and on the opposite side of the river, in the north bank of the Brahmaputra, this is the Magnoa Dol. Now here you find sculptures of Hindu gods and goddesses, and the mandapa, it resembles an Assamese thatch house. Like the shed you can see, this is the present day shed. So because it is an area of rainfall, we have slanting roofs. So just like a village hut, the mandapa wall, it is, we call it dochala or dusali, like that it has. And you can see very stunted dome. And here you don't have a proper amalaka actually. So it is octagonal, but it is not very proportionate looking. And you can find this, and then the mastaka, it is rounded on top. Now this is the plan of the Gorokhya Dol, and this is the plan of the Magnoa Dol. This I just managed to scan it from a text, so you can get a rudimentary idea. So this shikhara is just straight. Although this is 8-sided, the shikhara is very straight, but here it is curved like a rekha dol, but still stunted. Now, what you find is after that, there is a long gap, and it is only in that is Gadadhar Singha or Supatha, that is who drove away the Mughals forever from the Brahmaputra Valley. He built a temple under his patronage, was built that is by the Ahom minister, prime minister, not the prime minister, sorry, governor of Upper Assam called Borborua, that is Alan Bura Dihingia. So he built this Thauradol. So this looks like a Chausala structure, and you find lotuses and other designs, and it is preceded by a mandapa. But now the mandapa only walls are there and a CI sheet roof is here. And you can find that is on the facade of the structure. This is the back view, the front view. This is all of brick, okay? It is all of brick. It's not stone. So you find these lotuses, etc. And it is made upon, stands upon a raised structure platform. Now, to the same period, we find at Biswanath Saril in Punitpur district, the Bishwanath Devalaya. So we had visited this quite some years ago, and you can see their projections, but from viewed from one side, it appears like a Pancharatha, viewed from another side, it appears like a Saptaratha, because the lengths are not proportionate. That is, the protrusions of the Ratha plans are not proportionate. And you find terracotta plaques here, all around the temple. And see, this is like, you can have a look at the Shikhara, which does not resemble a Nagara Shikhara. It actually resembles something which has adapted maybe from a pagoda or something from Myanmar. So you do have a rudimentary kalasha and some lotus sort of thing, but no amalaka. It's just some circular globule sort of flat numbers. Now, Gadadhar Singha or Supatha, he built another temple, that is the Umananda temple. Now, this Umananda temple, he constructed it after driving the Mughals away. But the Doloi or the priest of the temple has a deed on handmade paper called Tulapat in Assamese, where there is a, it is from Badshah Alamgir, that is from Aurangzeb. So when Guwahati had been occupied by the Mughals, then this land had come, the temple and its lands had come in for land revenue, assessment of land revenue. So at Umananda, actually, there was a pre-Ahom temple. There was a pre-Ahom temple. And what we find is the Doloi of the temple had given an application to the Mughal emperor. And the Mughal emperor had checked the records and honored the former land grant to the temple, that it would be a rent-free land grant. Now, the Ahoms had this system of making land-free land grants to temples, which were known as Devottar, then to Brahmins known as Brahmattar, and also to the Satras or the Vaishnavite monasteries, which were called the Devottar. So what you find is today also, this is in Guwahati city itself where I reside, and it is in the middle of the Brahmaputra. Just excuse me, okay, just an insect came. Shh. It was a bee. So I didn't want to get stung.
I hope you're okay.
So even today, pilgrims go, it is in the middle of the river Brahmaputra in Guwahati. And this is what the temple looks like. They have whitewashed it, but actually it is made of stone, lower part of stone and upper part is made of brick. So you can see like a fluted sort of shikhara. Now we come to Joykhagar, and after Gadadhar Singha, his son Sukrangfa or Rudra Singha ascended the throne of the Ahom kingdom, and There are many stories, of course, but like before Gadadhar Singha had become king, the Ahoms had a system that if anybody had any mutilation and they did not have a perfect body, princes of the royal blood, they could not become king. So the former king had mutilated many princes of the royal blood, and Gadadhar Singha had escaped to the Naga hills. So his wife, who was called Joymoti, she was tortured by the king and his men to reveal the whereabouts of her husband, but she had refused, and she had been martyred. So after that, Gadadhar Singha comes down from the Naga hills and avenges his wife, and that is seizes the throne. Now, to commemorate the death of his mother, Joymoti, at Joysagar, Rudrasagar excavated a huge tank. So the tanks are some of the perennial, that is, these are perennial, and the Ahoms had a special class of officials known as the Mati Seleka Bihaya. So they were actually soil testers. By tasting the soil, they could divine whether there was a natural spring or aquifer under the ground. And the Ahoms would tap into this aquifer and build the tanks. And the level of the water tanks, even today, we have many in Guwahati also, which was the headquarters of the Borphukon, or the governor of Lower Assam. And in Sibsagar especially, then in Joysagar, then Lakhisagar, the local people, we call them Khagor because they are like as big as the sea. They are huge, huge tanks. So here on the banks of the Joysagar, to commemorate his mother, he built the Joy Dole. So in Upper Assam, the word dole is used for the Ahom monuments to denote a temple. So this is, I think, taken by a drone. And here from top, you can see, this is a Shia sheet because the original roof has fallen down. So there were two mandapas here, one was here. And here there is this mandapa is still there. I will show you a better picture. And this is the temple. And what you find is it's an octagonal shaped temple, but with a hemispherical circular dome. And something like Angashikharas have been placed here. And next to it, this structure, this is called the Devi Ghar, and it is not actually a temple. It is not actually a temple. That is, and now it is not worshipped, but at one time it was also a temple. So this is a photo taken to give the size. So this is the temple and this is the tank. Now he excavated the Joy Dole. This is the close-up view. And this is on the banks of the here, you can see nearby. So it has a Pancharatha Vimana, Antarala, and two mandapas in an east-west axis. Now this is the Boidyanath Dole. And here you can see that is the structure. It is pixelated a bit, I think. I'm sorry. But see, here it is not an Amalaka. Okay, top we have a Kalasha, but they are circulated sort of diskettes. And this is a roundish dome on top. And in lieu of Angashikharas, we have this. And this is the Dochala, and this is the entrance. And this serves as the mandapa. So this structure, like the Assamese hut, this was used for the walls of the mandapa. And this is the Devi Ghar. This is the Devi Ghar. So this is in the shape of a hut. And most of the Ahom temples for the mandapa and the Antarala, they would use this structure. But this is the entrance to this structure. Now this is called the Phakwa Dole. And what you find is this Phakwa Dole, it is an octagonal shaped structure built in the shape of a pyramid. Now, historians believe, but it has not been proved till now, according to local, you can say, oral sources, and historians believe that this was actually the mausoleum of Rudra Singha's mother, Joymoti Kore. That is the queen mother. And the steps leading up from four sides, and it is an octagonal structure. And by this time, Neo-Vaishnavism had taken deep roots in Assam, and it is possible that in Neo-Vaishnavism, where Vishnu is held as supreme, the Bhagavat is the object of worship. It is placed on this stand, which is called a horai. It's a metal stand made of brass. It's called a horai. And this is the structure which we find in the namghars or prayer houses. And the Phakwa Dol could have been built on this model. It could have been built, but it is octagonal in keeping with the Ahom idea of things. So this is from the Assam State Museum, but anyway. But generally, this is kept in the Namghar or prayer houses, which we find commonly. So this is a conjectural restoration of the Phakwa Dol at Rangpur, Sibsagar. And Rangpur actually was a new city which Rudra Singha had built. So at the corners, 4 corners of the 4 steps, you find this small structure which resembles a temple, and it may have been like this. And initially, it probably developed as a mound and a small thatched house, and later, like in the Langpuri Parvat, which I showed you, a masonry building on an earthen, and later on an octagonal stepped plinth. We have no proof, but it may have been, because most of the buildings of the Ahom period, earlier you find mounds and made of thing, and then later kings, they renovate it and make it of brick and stone. Now, after Rudra Singha, his sons, Khiva Singha, and Khiva Singha was very superstitious, and the astrologers predicted that there would be calamity if he was ruling. So his queens, in turn, ruled as the regent. They adopted the title of Bor Raja, and they also struck coins. And they were very, patrons of Shakta Hinduism. And after Shiva Singha, his brothers also ruled. And like Pramata Singha, Rajesha Singha, and other Ahom kings and nobles also patronized architecture. And so while temples were known as Dol in Upper Assam, in Lower Assam, they were known as Devalaya. Now, in the region of Guwahati, which was under the jurisdiction of the Borphokon, the Torun Dwara family built a number of temples as authorized by the Ahom kings. In Guwahati, we find numerous Ahom temples like that of Ugratara. Now, Ugratara temple has a story behind it, that it is believed to be where the navel of Shakti or Sati has fallen. That is, it's the Shakti Sthal. But there is no object of worship. It is a pit. It's a natural spring from where water springs out, and it is regarded as sacred. Then the Navagraha, where the planetary worship takes place. Then Sukreshwar, where we find a huge Shivalinga. Then Vishnu Janardhan. Then Baneswar on the south bank. Then numerous other temples on the Nilachal, where the Kamakhya temple stands. And we also find temples, pre-Ahom temple remains are there, belonging to the 10th, 11th century of the Dasa Mahavidya. Now, on top of these temples, the Ahom rulers built the present day temples which are standing there. Like we find temples of Bhuvaneshwari, Tara, Dhumavati, Bagalamukhi, etc. Now, on the island of Umananda, we find the Haragauri and Chandrasekhar temples besides the Umananda temple. And in North Guwahati, we find Ashwakranta. And this also has a myth attached to it. It is said that the whole story of Krishna and Rukmini has been translocated to the Brahmaputra Valley and to Upper Assam. And we have remains of a bricks-built city and ramparts in Upper Assam in the region of Hodia. And it is known as Bhishmak Nagar according to local legends. And it is said this is the place of Rukmini. Now, the story goes that when Krishna runs away with Rukmini, when she was supposed to be married, I think, to Shishupal, I'm not sure. But anyway, so then his horses were very tired, coming all the way from Upper Assam up to Guwahati. And here the horses, it is called Ashwakranta or Ashwaklanta also, they rested for some time. And on this spot, a temple was built on the hills bordering the river in North Guwahati. And locals will also show you the marks of Krishna's hooves there, but they are just weathering and round holes on the stones on the riverbank. Another temple there is the Manikarneswar, and also there Manikarneswar is a Shiva temple, Ashwaklanta is a Vishnu temple, and Dirghaswari is dedicated to Durga. Then we also have the Rudreswar Devala. Rudra Kingha, he thought after his father passed away, he thought that every time the Mughals come and we defend and we drive them away, why should we not take it to the enemy court, that is enemy's kingdom himself? So he thought we should go on the offensive. So he gathered around different chieftains from Assam and he called upon the local kings, etc., to join him. And they planned to invade the Mughal territory. But unfortunately, in North Guwahati, he fell ill and died. So he was kept there for some time before being taken to the royal necropolis at Saraido. So at the place where he, his body was kept in state for some time, his son, Pramatta Singha, the younger brother of Shiva Singha, built a temple. Now, this temple is unlike any other, and it looks like an Islamic mausoleum. And besides this, we find numerous other temples like Siddheswar, Belsor, etc. But most of them, and not only that, the Ahoms did not even just build temples. Unlike the pre-Ahom rulers of Assam, they meticulously maintained records and chronicles called Buranjis. Then we find a lot of copper plate inscriptions and also descriptions in the temples, in the books. And they also had an architectural division, and that is the measurements of Ahom temples, what sort of mortar was used. So different types of mortar, and that's why they have survived to this day. Like they use ducks' eggs, and then they use shells and other things. Then matima is, I think, urad dal and other stuff which they used, besides that is hay and other things. And all these details are given in the Sangrung Phukanar Buranji, which is of building materials, mortar, what should the shape be, what should the proportions be, everything is there. Then moreover, the land grants and the building of the temples are inscribed in copper plates. And they also dedicated or endowed the temples with lot of land for the maintenance, and also servitors known as pai. So the Ahoms did not have a permanent standing army, and every able-bodied men from 15 to 55 had to serve in turn with the king. So they did not pay taxes directly, but they gave service to the royal, that is a royal court of the state. So all able-bodied men, initially they were divided into groups of 4, and later there were groups of 3 in times of war, and they would be called a goat. And in rotation, like one person would look after the fields and kheti, that is the cultivated fields of the others, and the others would serve, would serve the king. And the services would be called upon during times of war. So these are some of the things which we find, and this is that is what you call the Hibodol in Sibsagar, and Sibsagar is named after this. In Assamese, we call it Hyohagar. So that Shiva is pronounced as Hiwa, and these are the other temples. So this is the Shiva Dol, and it stands at 40 meters high, and it has sculptures on the outside. And this is the back view from top. That is, front view from top. Like, so here you find the Antarala is here. And this is all 8-sided, but with Ratha projections. And something resembling the Anga Shikharas, but slightly different because they are 8-sided. And this temple, it has like sort of fallen to disuse. But this is the Shiva Dol, and there is the Vishnu Dol, and the Devi Dol is also this side. This is Sibsagar town. Okay, this is a close-up of the Shiva Dol. So you can see. So this Chausala structure, this is called the Antaral, and this was the Mandapa. And this Mandapa, now the original Mandapa, only the walls remain. So it has been repaired now. It has been repaired now. And this is the temple. So the Ratha projections actually in the temple, like the projections which go out, they go all the way up to the Shikhara. And you can see this disc, and this is supposedly made of gold, the Kalasha. And during the 1951 earthquake, it had tumbled down. And recently, there was a big controversy in the papers about, because waterlogging had taken place inside the Garbhagriha where the Shivalinga was, and some miscreants had removed it, and there was a big controversy that the ASI had taken it away, then it was restored. Now, this structure, it basically resembles what you see in typical Assam Namghars, where people gather to pray to Vishnu. That is from the Neo-Vaishnavite movement. So this is like, this is CI sheet now, but originally, like, it was made of brick masonry. This is the Vishnu Dole. So here you can see the Dochala Mandapa, and these Devakoshthas, or the niches, they have sculptures of gods and goddesses. So like the Anga Shikharas, they are kept here. But as you can see, like, it has a sort of honeycomb design. So this is the Dochala structure. Now this is what I was saying, that it resembles an Islamic monument, and this is the Rudreswar Devala in North Guwahati, which was built by Pramata Kingha. Now, if you go inside here, of course, there are snakes and all. I mean, it is on a huge raised platform, and then you find these. You can go inside, like there's a tunnel, and you can go around it. And from inside, you can climb up to the platform. And the CI sheet obviously is new. So at the present time, it was found only up to here. Then in keeping with the octagonal shape, this structure was of CI sheets was erected. And this is actually typical you find in the British colonial houses in Assam. They have this sort of turrets, etc. So this is the plan. So this is circumventory archway under the platform. As I said, it goes like this. So it may have resembled like this, the elevation, but these parts, you can see this, and this is the structure. So from inside also, the steps you can climb up. From the outside the platform, you climb up, but inside also the steps you climb up, and you reach the mandapa. That is from the central doorway. These steps are there, but from inside also, there are steps. It's not very safe place. It's very full of vegetation, etc. So although it's a temple, and today we do not find any stone images there, we just find brass images. Now this is the Kamakhya temple, which was built by the Koch kings. But this part, this Naitya Mandapa of the temple was built by the Ahom king, Rajeshwar Singha. Now, this pattern of the Kamakhya temple actually is a stone temple. And up to the Bada portion, it is a typical Nagara temple, Pancharatha temple. Now, it had fallen down and during an earthquake. And when the architect Megha Mukdam, who was hired by the Koch king, that is to rebuild it, he was unable to do so because by this time Islam had come into Bengal and the Koch Bihar area. Koch Bihar was also conquered by the sultans. So they were not used to building a Nagara Shikhara. They could not reconstruct the Nagara Shikhara. So twice they tried and twice they failed. So after that, they made it sort of a beehive sort of structure like this. Of this part is made of bricks. And instead of, the Pancharatna temple, here, the mandapa was there. There's an antaral also. So they built one central dome and they put 4 sort of domes here. And elsewhere also, instead of Anga Shikharas, they put Guldastas. Now, this was from the Koch period in the 15th century. But later, the Ahoms in the 18th century, they built this like the back of a tortoise actually. So this whole thing is of brick. This whole thing is of brick and mortar. So like a tortoise shell shape. Now, this is the Navagraha Devalaya. And in the Kalika Puran, we find that it is an ancient space where the planets are worshipped in the form of lingas. Now, after independence, actually, only the wall structure was there. Outside here, you find Rahu and Ketu, and inside you find the Navagrahas. The sun is at the center, and you find. Now, this dome, in imitation of the dome of the Kamakya temple, was built at a later period after independence. And this is inside. So, like, this is Ravi. And here you find the ancient temple sculptures were there. But what had happened is, today what is being worshipped here, like say Som, Mangal, Bodh, then Guru or Brihaspati, okay, so Shukra, Shani, etc. They don't correspondence to these. Because in the Ahom period, when this temple was reconstructed, they were not aware which went where. So they just put them here inside. So this is the inside of the thing. But these, what you call Shivalingas, they are sort of they belong to the pre-Ahom period, and this is made of stone. Now, what you find is, we find from one of the Buranjis, known as the Kamrupar Buranji, that when Rudrakingha became king, he ordered a list to be made of all the sacred spaces or sacred spots of Kamrup. And all the temples which the Ahoms built in the subsequent period, they were actually rebuilt by the Ahoms. But the inscriptions on the walls or the copper plates, they always say Nirman. They never say Punar Nirman. They always say that they built it. But the base of the temples, the Garbhagrihas, are all pre-Ahom. And some old sculptures also lie around on the grounds of the temple. But the Ahoms reconstructed the sacred spots which were dear to the subjects. So they patronized the religion of the temple, of the subjects. Now, this has been given a new lift and pair. This is a brick temple. It's a Sukreshwar temple. It has been newly painted now. So everything has been painted over. But originally, it was not like this. It was like the brick temples you saw of the Ahom period only. So this is how they built their version of the Anga Shikharas, like Guldastas. And this sort of thing we find in the Nilachal temple dome. So the late architect, that is historian and who wrote architecture of Assam, who studied, he was also an engineer. So he renamed this the Nilachal dome, because he said that the sculpture, that is the temples in Guwahati, the dome was modeled on that of the Kamakya temple. This is a new temple here. Now, on the other side, there's the Vishnu Dhanardhan temple, and it's a sacred spot because you find 9th-10th century rock-cut sculptures when we go to the river side. This is on the river Brahmaputra on the south bank in Guwahati itself, and you find the Panchadevata, that is a huge rock-cut sculpture of Ganesha, then Vishnu, Dhyani Vishnu, that is Vishnu in Padmasana, and then you find Shiva, then you find Katyayani, and you find Surya. Now, this is the temple at Negheriting, and this was also built by Rajeshwar Kingha. And this is the only existing example of a Panchayatana temple, which we find standing in Assam today. So, but unlike other Panchayatanas, here you find that there is a mandapa, separate mandapa and a temple, which are all surrounding this. So this is the front view of the temple. And you find these Anga Shikhara like of things on the 4 sides. This is the inside of the main temple. This I downloaded from the IGNCA website. This is the side. So you can see this sort of trellis sort of pattern is here. Here you find sculptures here. These are the moldings. This is a brick temple. And what you find is, this is the mandapa of the temple, a smaller version of the 4 temple corners. So Negheriting is a Shiva temple, and the 4 corner temples are dedicated to the other 4 deities. that is Ganesh, Surya, Devi, and Vishnu. Now, this is again on the island of Umananda. And this is a very oblong looking temple, which was built with the decline of the Ahoms during the time of Boris Nathkingha. And this is called the Hara Gauri temple. It is dedicated to Shiva Parvati, and this is dedicated to, this is also in Bhashmachal. And the temple of Umananda, actually in local lore and the Kalika Puran, it is called Bhashmachal, because as I have said, after Assam in the early period, it comes under Vedic Brahmanical influence. We translocate many things, and Kama Dahana is supposed to have taken place in mid-Brahmaputra. And the island of Umananda, it is known as Bhashmachal in ancient India, early literature. That is, it is the body of Kamdev. And the name of Assam comes to be called Kamrup because after Rukmini gave birth to Pradyumna, who was Kamdev reborn, so the early name, which Assam was known as Pragjyotisha, Pragjyotishpura, it changed to Kamarupa, where Kamdev, the god of love, regains his rupa or form. Now, this is slightly different. And this is sort of, you can say, like not like a step pyramid, but like courses, unlike other temples. So this is in the declining period, and this is built by one of the last Ahom rulers called Chandrakanta Kingha. And another temple is here, Baneshwar, but it has been painted so much over, and there is a Shiva Linga here that it looks like a modern temple. So nothing, you can not see anything of the original brick and Om and whatever has been written here in the modern period. It's in Guwahati itself. It is still under worship. Now, this brings us to the end of temple architecture, but I just wanted to show you some other remains of the Ahoms. This is the Kareng Ghar. This is the Kareng Ghar in Gorgaon. So Kareng means the palace, royal palace. And it is like in 3 stories, like this you can see. So this was the residence of the Ahom kings when Mirzumla invaded Assam in 1661-62. And this is the Rong Ghar. The original one was built by Rudra Kingha, but later I think Pramata Singha renovated it. So these steps are new, but previously the king used to come on elephant back, and this was a pavilion actually. It was a pavilion from where the king would watch. There's a field here, and where the king would watch games. That is what you call mohjus. Mohjus means buffalo fights, and dancers, bihu dancers, etc. on elephant fights and other means of entertainment. So there are lots of stucco designs here, monkeys, other things, birds. Very nice. And there is a pleasure boat on top. Here you can find, because these sort of pleasure boats were there, but again, the specimen of a temple is also there. So this is a secular building. Now this is a hill haku. Haku means a bridge. Now this is in Namdang, and this is a monolithic bridge. This is made of one, like it is a natural stone, and it is still in use. It is still in use. It is called Namdang or hill haku. And the stone was carved, and inside we find sculptures also. And it is part of a highway now. It is still there. It was built by Rudra Kingha. He built many hill hakus. Another one is in North Guwahati also. This is the top surface. So this is stone, and then later it was paved, etc. in the modern period. But this is the original monolithic bridge. So that sort of brings us to the end of Ahom architecture, temple architecture.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
I've taken very long. Sorry, I took 15 minutes extra.
That's okay. Can you hear me at all, or
I can't hear you.
Okay, what I will do is I
don't know why.
So that's okay. So I will keep asking the questions. Can you exit the presentation?
I'll log in at YouTube, then I can hear you, and I will answer you here.
No. I will send you questions here. Can you come on video as well, please? So one of the comments that I wanted to point out was that towards the end, it is really interesting that you showed us an Ahom palace for a change. Because for most of the Indian dynasties, the only buildings extant are the temples they have.
It's a bit slow. Huh. Hmm.
For a change. Because for most of the Indian dynasties, the only buildings extant are the temples they have.
Yeah. So the palace, it still exists, and we also have other secular buildings like the Tolatal Ghar and all that, which was a multi. Shankardeva did not build any temples; he built namghars.
Okay.
Sculptures of Ahom king.
So Srimati's question was also not just on Shankaradeva alone. Her other question
is it is like 7 stories, 3 stories are under the ground, and they are top.
We are having a lot of clashes between the YouTube feed and the questions that I am typing here. So my suggestion is that you ignore YouTube for now. Just look at the chat where I will post the question, and you can read it and then you can answer. That will be easier, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, it is becoming delayed.
Yeah, it will be. So you just ignore the YouTube questions. Just close.
Okay. I'll exit YouTube. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can follow the questions here. So Srimati's question is: are there any picture or sculpture of Ahom kings available? Just so that the textiles, the Mejankari silk, which was worn by the Ahom kings, such things can.
Any pictures or sculptures of the Ahom kings? Of the king themselves, no. But like just to see the textiles, etc. And okay. Now, Shankardeva did not build palaces. Shankardeva did not believe in idol worship. He was a Neo-Vaishnavite saint.
Okay.
And what we find is, today, if any temple is built in Assam, what is the temple architecture they follow? Actually, we also have, depending on the people who build, we also have 2 or 3 built in the Dravidian style also.
I see.
Like the Balaji temple and all. But most of them are built in the Nagara style, and they are Rekha Deols. What we call the Rekha Deol, that sort of a thing. They are mostly built like that. But temples are not built so much by the people of Assam. Mostly people worship Vishnu, and they build what you call namghars, where prayer is offered to. Okay, do you have any artworks or drawings found? Not drawings, but we find a lot of sculptures. But I did not show you all sculptures because, okay, I can show you a few sculptures if you want to see. Just hold on. And like the Thaura Dole and all, they were built in the 17th century. Then Umananda also was rebuilt in the 17th century. So these are still standing. So the it is only like the time of Pratapkinga and all where the temples are not standing. So wait, to share screen. Okay, I'll just show some temple, that is sculptures. Wait, how do I? Okay, wait. Let me take out. Incidentally, the Ahoms also patronized miniature paintings. That is Vaishnavite manuscripts, painted manuscripts. Wait,
Okay.
architecture. Wait. Just give me a moment. Okay. These are, by the way, monolithic stupas which we find in Surya Pahar. Okay. Okay, this is sculpture from the Ahom period. It is a stylized representation of the goddess Durga on stone. This was found from Mongoldo and is now in the Assam State Museum. Then this is a stylized lion. This belongs to the pre-Ahom period, and these are pre-Ahom, that is copper plate and the copper plate, seal. And you find this sort of lion, but later this lion we also find in the Ahom sculptures. Now, these are manuscripts, Neo-Vaishnavite manuscripts, some of which were what you call patronized by the Ahoms. They were called a school of painting called the Gorgoya style. So this is Ravana coming to meet Sita in Ashokvan. Now, these are the satras. That is satras, or this is in Satrasal, like Roya Kuti Satrasal. This is wooden sculptures. You find wooden sculptures here. Then these are the doors of the satras, and they used hengul, haithal, and other vegetable dyes to color this. Then these are wooden sculptures of the Ahom period. They also patronize the satras. And this is Narasimha avatar. This is Balarama. Then Parashurama, Kurma avatar. Then this is Ram. So this is the Singhasan. Like I said, like in Assam, we have not seen a lion. So we always find these stylized lions.
Interesting.
And this is, again, this is, see, the Singhasan, lion throne. And this is what you call Ravana. So to give symmetry, one head is portrayed here. This is Garura, then Vishnu. Then this is the Gajasimha motif in wood. This is the Singhasan I have shown you. Okay, no, these are of the Kasaris. These are not Ahom sculptures, but there are other sculptures. So wait. If you want to see clothes of the Ahoms, okay. Okay, this is from the Ahom period, but this is in Western Assam, and it shows a Mughal soldier and probably leading a hunt. Somebody dressed in Mughal wear, and you can see the deer here. And this one, his hand is here, and this, look at the tails of the horses, they are plated. This is a terracotta plaque. And he holds on to the neck and he goes below and he stabs it. Now, this is the scene, the ascent of Yoga Maya. This is also seen from Baghapara. This is in the Assam State Museum. So there is lack of foreshortening here. The bed looks very oblong. So Devaki asked Kanksha not to kill the girl child, but he wants to throw it. So you can see the local dress, etc. Then
nice.
These are some terracotta plaques which have come loose from Ahom temples. So what is interesting in is earlier we find Bhudevi shown as a woman, but here Varaha is shown with a globe. Now this is the only portrait I could find of Ahom king. See, there's a peacock here. This is a hen, that is a falcon. They were fond of hunting. So with an attendant, and this is the king is sitting. And this is what a house looks like. See, this is the top of the house. So the king is in his palace or house. I think this is probably one of the few architectural pieces shown in a sculpture. And this is Draupadi Swayamvara. This is in the Jagadhatri Dole. This is from Kalugaon in Lakhikhagor, in Sibsagar district. This is Gaja Lakshmi, but the face has become bad. Then this is Koumari. Then this is again Kali. Then this is on the parrot, Kamdev. This is, and what you find in the Ahom sculptures, sometimes very difficult to make out whether they are male or female. Both have, you know, rudimentary breasts. So this may be Koumari also, this may be Kartik also. So the Ahom actually facial features, this is what they looked like at those times when we see the paintings and other sculptures. That is Mongoloid features.
Very
Now this is a form of Vishnu and the Sheshnak canopy is here, he's standing. This is Surya with Aruna in profile. You can see he's riding 7 horses and 1 wheel. So this iconography is different from earlier iconography of standing images of Surya, which we find in the pre-Ahom period. Okay.
Thank you. Can you close your
Clothes?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know if I can find any clothes to show.
That's okay. Thank you, Dr. Paramita Das. Actually, we, you know, the entire thing.
Okay, I have some photos from the museum where you will find clothes. Okay.
So let me take the opportunity to sort of round up.
Okay.
The last,
These are clothes.
You want to show something more? Okay, please go ahead.
These are in the Assam State Museum. This has become bad. Enga Sola, it is called. Sola means a dress. Anything which you apparel, basically. So Mezankori and all, see, like brocade. This is a chadar. This is Assamese weaves. This is called a riha. Because earlier people did not wear blouses, so they would wear the mekhla and sadar, and the upper part of the body would be covered by for women with the riha.
Your presentation
so this
is not
from
visible.
Eri. It is called Ahimsa silk. So this is a mekhla sadar, like these are the designs. Actually, like it should be. Okay. So this is what we wear even now. These are all woven. This is called Gosa design. This is again, you can say. You can see the weave, golden weaves.
Excuse me.
So this has zari work. This is like a cap. This is from 19th century. Okay, I can stop now. I think it's, I can finish it now, na? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, okay. Anyway, time is also very late now. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Paramita Das, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. Towards the end, it became very difficult because we have been having only one-way communication, and with that, we still got so much out of your presentation. First, the Ahom history, then the architectural styles, and then from there to sculptures as bonus, and subsequently also I believe you showed a lot of clothes, except that it didn't come through in the presentation. Maybe we can organize another presentation and then get you to interact with us. But the last 5 days have been extremely rewarding for us at Tamil Heritage Trust, and also the members who came from varied backgrounds, from various places across the country, and perhaps even outside the country, to go through this Indology Festival of Tamil Heritage Trust, Indology Festival 2022. I would like to sum up very briefly. In all, we had about 14 lectures. We started with Dr. Kesavan Veluthat giving us a keynote address, which nicely brought out the socio-economic situation specifically in South India, with predominant focus on Tamil country, of moving from the just around the early medieval period, the period before that, moving on to the early medieval period. It sort of set a stage for what we got through in the subsequent lectures. The first lecture that focused on the art and architecture and the temple builders of India started with, of course, the Cholas. We are obviously, from Tamil Heritage, just very partial to the Chola achievement, and the amazing Chola architecture came out in Dr. Chitra Madhavan's excellent, very measured presentation of how the Cholas took the Pallava innovations to the next level through their engineering. The next one was a slightly different kind of a presentation, because having shown all about the greatness of Chola architecture, what can we even show in Tamil Nadu? And that's where Sitaraman, architect Sitaraman, explained how the Pandya architecture, despite all the greatness that was exhibited by the Pallavas and the Cholas, how Pandyas could still present something unique, something different, and compared and contrasted things very nicely. I quite liked that particular presentation. And from there on, we moved on to all over India. We started with Tamil Nadu, then we moved on to the Pratiharas of the northwestern part of the current India, also a little bit of the central India, where Dr. Manjari Balerao took us to the very mysterious architecture presented by the Pratiharas, which was quite captivating. It's predominantly the central India, but also she showed architecture from Rajasthan region. The next lecture from Dr. Kumud Kanitkar, and she presented the architecture of Shilaharas. She called them as Vamanas, but to be honest, the passion with which she brought out the Saivasiddhanta philosophy, packed into the Ambarnath temple, that was quite outstanding actually. To really understand the what is normally written in text, brought out in a particular temple, it's a great presentation overall. And from the west, we jumped on to the east, where we went into the Palas and Senas, where we were trying to really understand how the Palas and Senas had supported the Buddhist architecture. Very interesting, of all the presentations, a considerable focus on Buddhism happened only in this particular presentation, where we could see the various Mahaviharas, and then subsequently also looked at a lot of temple architecture of Bengal, which was very unique in the sense of a brick temple architecture, which gave us a great insight into how the eastern part of the architecture is, along with today's the northeastern architecture of homes. So, in a sense, for some of us, very restricted in our understanding and thinking, Dr. Sudeepa Ray's lecture and now Dr. Paramita Das's lecture has given us an understanding of the east and the northeastern architecture of India. And then we moved on to the Kerala style of architecture, which is really interesting because there is a lot of rains, and hence they had to move considerably away from the standard Dravidian architecture to something that allowed for the rain to easily wash down. And that's something that we could also see in the Ahom architecture. The way the slanted roofs were used in both. So I could see a lot of uniqueness and the comparisons and commonalities between the Kerala architecture that was presented by Dr. Ajit Kumar to the very recent presentation from Dr. Paramita Das of the Ahom architecture. And then we looked at the Solankis by Dr. Sushmita Sen. And this was again the largeness not just of temples, with the temples along with them the stepwells, which is so special to Gujarat and Rajasthan region of Rani Ki Vav, along with, even in case of the Modara Sun Temple, the much larger the kund in front of the temple and their uniqueness that added so much to the Solanki's style, the Maru Gurjara style. And then we again moved to the modern Karnataka region, particularly the Tamil Nadu Karnataka border region of the Hoysala architecture, where Dr. Manoj Gundana presented not only the standard, very well-known Hoysala architecture, but also he pointed out some of the Hoysala architecture in Tamil region, which used slightly different idiom, but nevertheless the unmistakable stamp of the Hoysala architecture could be found in the Kaveri belt actually of Tamil Nadu, and the very understanding of what is this Vesara, and also a whole bunch of terminology that we are going to see again today. The architecture of the Kakatiyas, which Dr. Shivanagi Reddy presented, the commonality between the Hoysala architecture that Manoj Gundana presented, the Ekakuta, Dvikuta, Trikuta, Chatushkuta, and Pachakuta temples. Not just these definitions, but even the very close layout and the complete structural comparisons. That was quite amazing. And then Dr. Fanikant Mishra had presented on Khajuraho. Khajuraho was a very special place, and given the fact that Dr. Fanikant Mishra worked in ASI and was instrumental in some explorations there and excavations there, and his fondness for the Kandariya Mahadeva temple came out really, where he presented not only the greatness of the Shekari form of architecture, but also the excavations that his team undertook in Bijamandal. And one of the other great architectural forms of particularly the Madhya Pradesh region brought forward by the Paramaras, the Bhumija style, which was presented by Dr. Shrikant Ganvir. So in a sense, the Shekari, the Bhumija, these two very specific types that are available in that particular region were brought out by these two. And added to that is, again, on the eastern side, the eastern Gangas architecture across Odisha, starting with the very specific Kalingan style of architecture, its evolution, how slowly it evolved into the grand temples of the Lingaraja temple of Bhubaneswar, the Puri Jagannath temple, and the Konark temple of Konark Sun temple, and how each one vied with the other, and the kings went on to build a larger and larger temple in their uniqueness. So overall, for us, with very limited understanding of maybe one or two or three different styles, it was a great opportunity to see about 13 different styles, really speaking. And the only comment that I would say is that, not just, what we have seen is still very little compared to what we have not seen. And with that comment, I'm seeing some of the members saying that they are going to miss the THT programs tomorrow, but we have had a wonderful run. I don't think we can stretch it any further, and we are really happy at the Tamil Heritage Trust with all our organizers on the side, having put together a very interesting program, which was possible only because of all the resource persons. Our job stopped with just identifying the resource persons who are all accomplished researchers in their fields, who are professors, who are, there is a Stapati in Dr. Shivanagi Reddy, who are ASI, personals. It was a great time we all had with all of you. Thank you once again, and thank you all the listeners for patiently being with us to really enjoy the temple builders of the early medieval India. Thank you once again from Tamil Heritage Trust. Our regular monthly programs will start from next month onwards, and any new programs that we are planning, we will